This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, folks? Happy Friday. Game day tonight. What a huge matchup we've got between the undefeated Bombers and Stamps tonight. And, more drama around the offseason of the Winnipeg Jets. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Hope you're doing well. Andrew Hustler Paterson, Michael Remis with you. And, man, it's going to be a fun show. Although, I'll be honest, and we'll get into this shortly, the latest news on Pierre-Luc Dubois is enough to get any Jets fans' blood boiling, but we'll get to that in a minute. Battle for first place in the West tonight, and a great show coming up. We will head to IG Field in a few minutes. Ed Tait from BlueBombers.com will set up tonight's Battle of the Undefeateds. We'll talk some off-season hockey with our good friend Brandon Rewucki after that. And then a real treat for everyone before we drop the marbles and finish off the week. An extended conversation with former Winnipeg Jet Tim Stapleton. He is an absolute beauty and one of the funniest dudes we've ever had on the program. And we got a chance to catch up with Tim and hit a whole bunch of topics, his time here in Winnipeg, what he's doing now, and, of course, the question we all want to know, where's Buff? So that's all coming up a little later on. Just as we get into it, a big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, including Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Canadian Club Whiskey, Assiniboia Downs, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, Not AutoCorp, Breezy Bend, Royal Sports, Manitoba Battery, Culligan Water, Vita Health Fresh Market, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, and, of course, our friends out at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Welcome to everybody in chat. If you're with us on YouTube, make sure that you've hit that red subscribe button and hang around at the end of the program for another world-famous Winnipeg Sports Talk marble race to finish off the program. And for all of you listening on podcast, thanks so much for making us a part of your day. When you do have the opportunity, do us a solid and get onto Apple or Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating and a little review. Certainly helps us grow the channel. Remis, get in here. Let's get after it. What's up?
Hey, yeah, nice jersey, Huss. For those on
game
podcast.
Day ready. Game day ready, folks.
I should get out my jersey. I got. You can see it behind me. Off-season champion Ottawa Senators jersey right here. So I'll have to put it on eventually. Yeah, feeling good. I'm ready for the weekend. What a beautiful day it is in Winnipeg.
It is so nice outside. It's going to be hot. I usually spend most of the show just, as regular viewers will know, drinking Diet Pepsi. I'm trying to mix some more water in. But this is a day, folks. As you can see, the Vita Health, the green of the Vita Health popping. Hydrate as much as possible, because if you're going to be mixing in a few cold ones a little later on, you are going to need it. That looks like we're going to be getting in around 30 degrees, and it's going to get hotter throughout the weekend. But for tonight, with a great crowd, between 28, maybe up to 29,000 people at IG Field, you're going to want to be hydrated before you get after it tonight. And listen, Remo, we'll get to the Jets news in just a moment, but let's start with the big game tonight. And it's a much better way, a much more positive way to start the show, talking about the Bombers looking to go 6-0 on the season, but what a test against the Calgary Stampeders and Bo Levi Mitchell, who's got a great career record against Winnipeg, and the opportunity to go 6-0 for the first time in a long, long time.
Yeah, following week one, I thought Bo Levi was kind of on his way out. I thought the Bo Levi Mitchell reign in Calgary was coming to an end, and Jake Maier was going to be the starter, but look now. There they are, as tied, or it's not tied. They're tied with an undefeated record, but 4-0, Bombers 5-0. And I mean, look at their point differential. I mean, they've scored more points than the Bombers in one less game, 142 points. Kadeem Carey's carrying the rock pretty well. Malik Henry's emerged as a breakout star. I mean, their top receiver, Reggie Beilton, doesn't really get used that much. So, these was a heavyweight battle. I'm looking forward to being in the building tonight at IG Field. Great night. And we had a great game last night. We thought the East was going to get a win.
Insane.
We thought the East was going to get a win against the West, but Edmonton with, I don't know who's quarterback, Cornelius. It went to the other guy, Cal Loxley. Or no, sorry, he was carrying the ball a bit, but what a wild finish there with the.
Let's call it what it was: an epic choke by the Montreal Alouettes, completely self-inflicted. They had almost 200 yards in penalties, and somewhere Kahari Jones and Baron Miles are laughing their asses off watching what happened in the first game after they were fired, because Danny Machocha was not able to turn things around. And they blew a 21-point lead in the second half to lose by 1. An absolutely crushing loss for Montreal, except for the fact that no one wins any games in the East right now. So they're right in the middle of it, along with the 0-4 Ticats and Red Blacks. Yeah,
good thing for Montreal is they're still in second place with 1 win. I just still don't know why they don't start Vernon Adams. I'm a big Vernon Adams guy, but I didn't understand the firing, and they lost to Edmonton, who got 2 wins now in the basement of the West. However, that would be first in the East. So a couple other games this weekend, but we're focused on Bombers, Calgary. The Bombers, slight favorites, Huss. I'm checking here. Yeah, 3.5 now.
Yeah,
so
3.5. It was 3.5 yesterday and 4.5 earlier. Opened at 4. I think this is probably going to be in. Maybe there'll be a little bit of steam coming on the Bombers before the game. Maybe it gets up to 4, but I think it's a pretty good number and makes sense. And as I said, this is just going to be a phenomenal night. Don't forget to get out there early. Princess Auto Tailgate Zone will be getting going a couple hours before the game. $3.50 hot dogs and pop, $5 beers beforehand. Great entertainment. Going to be a heck of a lot of fun. So listen, we're going to tee up this game as well and talk about the rest of the Canadian Football League with Eddie Tait in just a few minutes. But Remo, let's move over to the Jets. And just before we get to PLD, because I know that's going to probably dominate the conversation, they have made a couple more signings, depth signings to say the least. Although I am intrigued about the 1-year entry-level contract they gave to Alex. Now, again, this is the first time we've talked about him, so I'm not sure whether I'm butchering his name. It's Limoges. That could potentially be Limoges, maybe a French, although he was born in Virginia and is an American. So bottom line is he just finished his first full year as a professional playing in San Diego for the Gulls in the AHL. 23 goals, 40 points in 62 games after a 4-year stint at Penn State in the Big Ten playing college hockey. And our guy Hacksaw reached out, Remo, to tell us about Alex coming over from the Ducks.
Yeah, he just said that he thought he signed. He said he had a good season there, and you went over the numbers, and they were strong. And so I'm kind of curious what he's going to bring. Is he going to be a depth player for for the Moose, or will he be a depth on the Jets? So, I mean, I'm trying to think of what the Jets roster is going to look like, and they still got to find a way to replace Paul Stastny and Andrew Kopp. They figured replaced him last year, but the Jets. I think the Jets forward group still is not finished. We're kind of waiting and seeing for some other stuff, I think.
Well, and while that happens, the defense corps gets even busier, at least organizationally. And I mean, obviously, I think these are more depth signings, but Ashton Sautner, who did play a little bit for the Manitoba Moose on a loan from the Vancouver Canucks a couple of years back, and Kyle Capobianco coming over from the Arizona Coyotes organization. Now, Capobianco is sort of interesting. I read this. Someone described the second year of the contract as somewhat of a poison pill because it's a one-way deal. But the first year is a two-way deal. And I know, obviously, when these are the signings that are made, there's all sorts of fodder and low-lying fruit for people that want to give it to the team. You got to have bodies, and there's an American Hockey League to fill as well. I don't think any of these players project to be playing National Hockey League minutes, barring a crazy string of injuries. But any general manager will tell you, you need a stack of, 10 to 12 defensemen if you're going to make a long run in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Jets got to get there first, but overall depth signings, not anything that's going to create huge headlines, but business that needs to get done. All that being said, Remo, it doesn't change the fact that there's quite a bit of other business at some point that's going to need to get done for the Winnipeg Jets if they do want to change this roster significantly from what finished up last season on the wrong side of the playoff line.
Yeah, I saw this alert on my phone that they signed him yesterday afternoon, and I was like, oh, I think I recognize this guy's name from playing EA Sports NHL. I mean, he's got a pretty good last name, but he played played with the Coyotes. Like, I kind of wonder where he fits in. Is he replacing like Nelson Noje on the Moose, or is he a depth guy for the Jets? And this is signaling that a trade is coming, because we've talked about how they have basically one spot for Stanley Heinola Sandberg. But Capobianco, 24, he had 9 points in 45 games with the Coyotes. He's drafted in the third round by the Coyotes in 2015. I'm not sure he fits in. I thought the 2 years was interesting, and signing a defenseman was interesting as well. So we'll continue to stay tuned to the Jets transactions.
Yeah, I mean, those are the ads for the depth of the organization, but certainly when we're talking about the glut of the veterans and the logjam for some of the younger top prospects in Heinola and Sandberg and Chisholm and Gavanka to have a chance, and Johnny Kovacevic, of course, and Kovacevic, we can't forget, is not waivers exempt this year. So, potentially if they were sending him down, they'd risk losing him, or, he could be a depth player, maybe a 7th or 8th defenseman on the roster right now. All that being said, relatively quiet free agency wise for the Winnipeg Jets. Still plenty of intrigue as to what trades could and may happen specifically to the blue line. But Remo, one thing that we weren't counting on for all the other drama around the team at the end of the season, the coaching search, the one thing I don't think anyone was counting on was maybe one of the other biggest storylines for the Winnipeg Jets would be Pierre-Luc Dubois going borderline Eric Lindros in trying to get out of town. And, the stuff that's been coming out of Montreal over the course of the last few days has been, well, as I said, I think most Jet fans are probably quite put off with the way this is being handled. We talk about Pat Brisson's comments yesterday about how much he wanted to play for the Montreal Canadiens, and this report today from Martin Leclerc with Radio Canada said that if you want to get it up, the Habs are still working with the Jets with the goal of closing a deal that would bring back Pierre-Luc Dubois to Montreal in the long run. The talks almost paid off at the draft last week. The other part of it, which is, somewhat over the top, they're reporting that Dubois was at the draft with his family, expecting and fully convinced that he would be traded to Montreal and could be the homecoming hero at the draft. And I'll tell you what, even if they have a deal done right now, good for Cheveldayoff for not giving Montreal exactly what they wanted and handing Dubois over on a silver platter in the middle of the biggest moment for the Habs franchise in a long time.
Yeah, reading this is just like, it does feel like a bit of another kick in the nuts after the offseason that we've had. We had the drama of Trotswatch. It was fun. Ended with him opting not to coach. And then I was joking, okay, after Trotz watch, it's not going to end. We're going to have Dubois watch. I thought the watch was going to be wait for him to sign a long-term deal with the Jets and how many years and how many dollars. I didn't think it was going to be watching Montreal media interview his agent about how he wants to play for the Habs and watching what we're mentioning is Martin Leclerc from Radio Canada said on a podcast that, yes, Dubois was at the draft with his family. Does that include his dad, Eric Dubois, who's the assistant coach of the Moose? Is it really awkward at True North office?
It sounds awkward.
Right now, it sounds really awkward. I don't know, maybe hiring father-son tandems. I don't know if it's worked. Doesn't seem to have worked
Heinz
out.
Ehlers would never pull that move.
It doesn't seem to work out. I mean, you had Adam say him and Dave didn't really talk a lot outside of work during the season. And now Eric Dubois is accompanying his son to the draft.
Well, we don't know that again.
Sorry, we don't know that. We don't know that.
That's speculation.
Sorry,
but you're
that's
right. The fact that he is working for the organization, I think that was a big reason why they thought they may have the inside track on getting him in that trade, making him feel at home, making him feel comfortable, and getting him to sign long term. That is quite clearly not the case right now as we speak in the middle of the summer.
So it says they're unsure. So who's said? Maxime Truman. This is all from French media. They're unsure if negotiations are still ongoing and unsure if the 13th pick was part of the original deal that led them to acquiring Doc. Dubois clearly wants to play for Montreal sooner than later. And his agent said as much on TVA. So I don't know. I don't think the Jets are going to trade him unless it's like a really good deal for them. We've seen that in the past. They're not going to give him away like Chicago gave away Alex DeBrincat. However, having him come back after all this, like imagine what first day is going to be like, having to answer all the questions. And like the first time you see a shift where he gives less than 100% effort, and it brings back memories of the last shift in Columbus. I mean, this is going to be going on for a while. This is just like
it's the last thing that this organization needed right now, because there was a huge question mark about the guy that had been the number one center in Mark Scheifele. And I know we're hearing that he's all in right now. I mean, let's face it. I think most of us will believe it when we see it based on what we saw last season and what we heard from Mark. I mean, it's great that they're putting that out right now. But again, the proof will be in the pudding, presumably if he's on the Winnipeg Jets and he comes back here, as to what he has to say when he shows back up in town and the way that he plays and what he does for Rick Bowness, and many of the things that were obviously lacking when it came to commitment and engagement last year under Dave Lowry. But the one thing the Jets did have last year was Dubois, who was, I think, really emerging into a leader on the team and a guy that, you know, win or lose, you could count on bringing the effort, the energy that you want from a guy that's setting the tone for the club. To now have Dubois being the big fire right now in the organization, I mean, man, it's one thing or another right now. And you know what? I think Chevy's in a real tough spot because, as I said, I'm glad they didn't trade him at the draft and make Montreal the big winners of everything, and the Jets taking three pieces for one and giving them that center that so many teams want. The fact of the matter is the Jets do have 2 years left on this contract. Now, Ken said yesterday, and folks, we had a great conversation with Weber on yesterday's show. If you missed it, you can get back that, and very correctly said that the best thing for Pierre-Luc Dubois, if he wants to get some massive big money contract, is to, get back on the line with Kyle Connor and, put up 80 or 90 points next year and continue to increase his value. But it really does seem like there's pressure tactics right now from the Dubois camp, aided by the Montreal media, that are putting the Jets into a bind. And, at a certain point, you have to say, F off. We're going to do what's best for the hockey club. And I think that's what Kevin Cheveldayoff is doing right now. But to your point, Remis, I mean, how this looks come training camp, if Dubois is still in the fold, what he has to say, how that is taken by his teammates. I mean, God, if that locker room didn't have enough problems already, adding this into it is going from bad to worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, Prairie Boy writes in chat, what a situation we have here.
Exactly.
What a situation. I mean,
maybe Roscoe is the foreseer of everything because he brought that line. He says it over and over again, and yet it might be the most appropriate term in the chat right now on a consistent basis. What a situation.
Just the negatives. I mean, we've seen the YouTube comments, just the negative stories regarding the Jets just going back or since the end of the season. It goes on and on. So, and again, I don't really blame Dubois for being unhappy with the way it ended, but just the openly trying to force a trade to Montreal with the agent on TV. It's hard to take. It's hard to take. So I'm curious, like, how he's going to be received in Winnipeg. I don't know what Jets, last year, everyone's like, oh, we got to lock this guy up. He's a great great player, he's cornerstone of the team. Now it's like clearly doesn't want to be
This is
here.
who we traded Patrick Laine for. I've already seen like 3 or 4. Could we do Dubois for Laine? I mean, I'll be honest. I spent a lot of time talking with my buddies, and again, it's more of a pipe dream. But is there any way we could do a do-over here, figure things out, get Laine back? Because honestly, there's been all this talk about American players wanting to play elsewhere. I think honestly, I think a situation in Winnipeg, and I'll put Calgary in this as well, maybe even Edmonton. Some of these Canadian, smaller markets, I honestly think you have a better chance of signing Europeans to long-term deals than some of the more entitled and spoiled North American players. And I'm not even caring about the border on one side or the other. But this is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, as I imagine it is. It's probably getting people excited in Montreal. But the one thing I do know that the Winnipeg Jets do not want to be is the team that can just be pushed around and forced to do something that they don't want to do when somebody else does. So I hope Dubois thought this out well, because if you think that the Jets are just going to capitulate bend over backwards and do whatever the Montreal Canadiens want at the expense of themselves, think again. And, there's a good chance he's coming back to Winnipeg on a 1-year deal and having to answer a lot of questions about the way he and his representatives handled this entire summer, and questions about how committed he is to the team that owns his rights, that he will be contracted to play for next year in the Winnipeg Jets. And for all the talk about guys last year that, were playing for themselves and, were cheating their teammates, I don't think Dubois was one of those guys. But I'll tell you what, there'll be a lot of eyes on Dubois number 80 if we get to this season, and he's in the lineup right now, and there isn't trades based on what seems to be coming out day after day after day from Montreal, his agent, and the Quebec media.
Yeah, I had a lot of problems with the Montreal media after the Scheifele hit, and I'm just having so many flashbacks now of Winnipeg versus Montreal coming together and being fully reminded. So we'll be keeping an eye on this as it goes, but I mean, pretty clear, just another in the long list of issues with the Winnipeg Jets. And seemingly, as we played the clips from Cheveldayoff yesterday, bringing back the same squad. And the one thing that gave me optimism was Mike Kelly on this show saying, hey, on paper, this is could be a playoff team. And I actually felt pretty good about that, but I think it's pretty clear.
Who is it that said last year that paper don't mean shit?
I think it was Blake Wheeler.
I think it was Blake Wheeler. And it was obviously true.
I mean, as much as I want to believe that, they have the talent, it's pretty clear there's something else going on where the talent, they're not playing to their full potential. So it's just.
Hey, did you send Ed a link?
I thought I did. Didn't get one?
No, he just texted me asking if you could send him the link. So.
I did send it. Did I send it to Tait at Blue Bombers? Okay, I'll send it again. I did send it.
Perfect. So yeah, Eddie's coming up right now. Let's just see what the chat has to say. This will be interesting. And this is for those of you listening on the podcast. That's one of the most fun part about doing the shows with the YouTube, is that people can get in. Oh, Rob Mahoney says that I deserve the Order of the Buffalo. Thank you. Thank you very much. Go Husk go. Don't call back. Larry Shively plays hardball, so the agents go to the press to put pressure on them. Has it ever worked? I'm not entirely sure. Let's see here. Trade PLD to Philly. Reunite him with Torts. Oh my God. Well, listen, the cap is open, or the chat is open right now. Get us your thoughts in there, and we'll be hitting that up in just a few minutes. We'll talk more about this with Rewucki. And don't forget, though, we are going to lighten the mood. We will have some laughs later on because former Jet Tim Stapleton's going to jump on the program. And listen, this was a hilarious conversation. You're going to be excited for that. But listen, enough drama with the hockey team. Let's talk about an undefeated football team. Ed Tait's coming up in just a second. Before we do that, hey, the weekend is here. And Vita Health Fresh Market has great prices on Winnipeg's best selection of natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. And it's barbecue season right now. What a weekend we've got coming up. Get your barbecue on with delicious lean bison steaks or chicken. They have hot dogs, burgers, and great non-alcoholic drink options like Sober Carpenter beer and clever mocktails. Everything you need for a great summer day. And of course, don't forget the delicious lunch options like Vitamarket salad, soup, sandwiches, and more. And the falafel salad is especially tasty. Hey, check out their new fully shoppable website as well to buy online, schedule a delivery or in-store pickup at myvita.ca, or pop by one of 7 Winnipeg locations for Vita Fresh Health Fresh Market, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. And hey, many of you may be heading out to the lake on the weekend. If you're jumping around on the lake and a boathouse door catches your eye, chances are it's from our friends at Wallace & Wallace. Listen, they're the fence leaders in town and the #1 spot for overhead doors for your garage, but they'll also doing boathouses. And chances are, they've got it all: steel, aluminum doors, polycarbonate or glass panels, and design that's perfect for your little piece of paradise. And if you're thinking your boathouse door could use some TLC, now that the high water's receded, you can give them a call for a service visit at 204-452-2700. Hit them up at wallacedoors.com or check out their showroom on Lawson Road. Fences, overhead doors, and whatever you need for your boathouse. The guys at F Apparel ready to go. I've been mentioning the last couple of days, but I went down and hooked up with Andrew and got suited up, measured for a few new garments. What a great shopping experience it was, filling me in on all of the options you can have when it comes to custom suits. And F Apparel's the leader in the game here in town. And their custom suits begin at just $400. But more than that, a great special on dress shirts right now in the summer, 3 for $210, made to order, chinos, golf pants, accessories, and more. They've got it all at F Apparel. Tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you, 190 Smith Street downtown, or hit them up online at fephapparel.com. And hey, our countdown is on to getting out to Aikens Lake. Saw a couple more monsters coming out in the Aikens Lake social media feeds. You can be on the water in less than 2 hours in a world-class paradise off the grid with incredible world-class fishing and even better people taking care of you with the Turenne family. AikensLake.com online and check out all their social feeds. Talk to them about booking for next year. All right, let's get ready for the football game tonight. I got the jersey on already. I am counting down not just to game time, but to the tailgate beforehand. And does it get much better than this? Undefeated Bombers hosting the undefeated Stamps. And Ed Tait, I believe it has been since 1961 in the Canadian Football League. Are we right that we've had 2 undefeated teams playing this late into the regular season?
Yeah, it's a crazy stat that Steve Daniel from the CFL dug up. Remember, back then they started way later, but back then I think it was a 7-0 versus a 4-0 team. So combined 11-0. Yeah, this is the latest in a year that 2 unbeatens have met, and it's just a real good matchup. There should be over 28,000 there tonight, from what I understand. And unless we get even more of a walk up, it's perfect for football. This is a perfect summer night, right? Friday night football here in Winnipeg. The Rum Hut's going to be hopping. Everything's going to be hopping.
Well, and I imagine there's a real buzz around the team. Now, listen, we know how business-like the Bombers are, and sometimes from a media perspective, it gets a little boring, but there's nothing boring about winning week after week. However, this is a huge test. We heard from a number of Bombers. I mean, we know the respect that they have for the Calgary Stampeders and the organization and what they've been over the years, and the fact that for the Bombers to get to the pinnacle and become champions, that was sort of in the video game, that was the boss at the end. You had to get through the Calgary Stampeders, and they finally did it. Fill us in on the vibe around the team, what it's been like, through practice, through media sessions, with the focus of the Bombers, knowing that they have another massive challenge on their hands tonight.
Yeah, it's been interesting, different than last week. Calgary's kind of flown under the radar this year, right? They're unbeaten, and maybe it's because it's kind of ho-hum. The Calgary Stampeders are good again that we've kind of forgotten about them, but heading into that game in Vancouver last week, there was so much buzz about Nathan Rourke, the Canadian quarterback, and how great he's doing, and all the hype about how great BC's defense is and how electric BC's offense is. And then Marcus Sayles tripled down on everything by calling the Bombers offense vanilla. So there was an awful lot in the Friday before last Saturday's game. you could feel this kind of venom building with the Bombers. Like, what's going on here? Why are these guys getting all this love? And I think they, we saw right from the opening kickoff in Vancouver that they took those guys to the woodshed and kind of beat them up a little bit. It's been quieter this week, and it's partly because I think Dave Dickinson has maybe warned his guys, don't say anything stupid this year to fire up the champs, right? Or this week to fire up the champs like Marcus Sales did last week. Not that they need any extra motivation, but it's been sort of this, hey, Calgary's really great. We have a lot of respect. And then Calgary's saying, yeah, Winnipeg's really great. We have a lot of respect. And it's very politically correct, right? And no bulletin board material. So it's businesslike. And I think what happened for the Bombers is, I'm not one of those people that was looking and finding so many flaws in their 4-0 start like a lot of people were. But I think what happened last week kind of reminded everybody, including some of the guys in the locker room, that this is still a pretty good football team that's won the last 2 Grey Cups, And so I think that win helped buoyed things a little bit. And I think these guys are just, let's put on the gloves and get in the middle of the ring and throw some punches here. It's going to be fun.
It is. And I mean, at the top of the marquee is this quarterback battle with Zach Collaros, who's never lost a game at IG Field, going up against a quarterback in Bo Levi Mitchell, Ed, that over the years has had a lot of success. I mean, he had been somewhat the kryptonite for a long time against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this when you talk about the most important position in the game.
Absolutely. Bo Levi Mitchell, 12-3 all-time in the regular season versus Winnipeg. And people will remember his first ever start was against Winnipeg way back. Nobody knew who he was, and he lit up Winnipeg for almost 400 yards passing. It's funny with Bomber fans, I think a lot of fans across the league, we look at Bo Levi Mitchell and it's sort of this begrudging respect. He is the guy that comes, walking into the saloon doors open wide, he struts in, you can just imagine the ka-ching, like with his spurs going, right? There's just there's something about him. And if he's your quarterback, you love it. If he's the guy that's beating you 12 out of 15 games, you hate the guy. So there is a respect, as again, begrudging from Bomber fans. But, you just mentioned it, Huss. It's hard to believe that Zach Collaros has not lost a start at IG Field. I mean, I know he came in at the end of 2019, but he got that regular season start there. Didn't lose a game last year at home. Hasn't lost a game this year at home. I thought last week's game in Vancouver was one of the best games I've seen him play in a long time. Just the way he moved around the pocket and did some magical things too beyond delivering strikes, those broken plays and spinning out of tackles. He was on fire. So, beyond all the other guys on the depth chart, just the quarterback matchup alone makes this one really compelling tonight.
Well, and just on the Calgary side of things for a minute. I mean, I remember talking with Remo and some guests on this program about the Calgary situation after the first couple of weeks of the year. And I was pretty convinced that Dave Dickinson, given his druthers, might not prefer the other guy playing quarterback. And there was a lot of questions as to how long Bo Levi was going to be the guy. And hey, credit where credit is due. He's just showing why he has been one of the best in his game for so long, because he's accepted this challenge and has really risen to it, with the talented young quarterback battling him for playing time.
Yeah, I think that came up yesterday a couple times. Huss, people were asking Mike O'Shea and Zach Collaros and some of the other Bombers in the day before media stuff about Bo Levi Mitchell and how he's playing. I think to Bo's credit, he played through some pain last year, and I don't think he was 100%, and it showed. But you're right, even at the beginning of this year, the first couple of games, his numbers were pretty ordinary, and Jake Mayer behind him was getting a lot of, hey, what about this guy? Maybe we should be looking at him. I don't think that Dave Dickinson and John Hufnagel get the quarterback decision wrong very often. What they both played the position, both are amazing coaches and evaluators. They still see something in Bo, and we saw it against Edmonton last week, which is a bit of a misnomer, although they looked good last night. I think Bo still got it. And you look at the people around him, got a really good receiving core, a really good running back in Kadeem Carey. Their offensive line looks pretty solid. So, this could be an interesting one tonight because it's a real good battle of their offense against Winnipeg's defense. And then can Winnipeg's offense still light it up like they did last week?
How much pressure will be on this Bomber secondary? I thought overall the line was awesome. I mean, the big boys really stepped up, but Nathan Rourke did burn them a couple times, for the big play. I imagine that'll be a focus through practice heading into this week. That Bo Levi Mitchell can chuck it, and they've got some receivers that have put up big numbers so far this year as well.
That's a great question, Huss. Last week, for as good as the Bombers were, the 3 touchdowns they gave up there was one that was short, but there were 2 long bombs. And I talked to Richie Hall, the defensive coordinator, about that just the other day. And they hate explosion plays. They hate those things where it's just like one, long bomb and you're off the field because you've given up a score. The Bombers defense every defense, but especially this defense despises that kind of stuff. And so Richie Hall said, you watch the tape, and the first one was against Winston Rose, I believe. And he kind of mistimed it, but he was there. There was another one against Nick Taylor. Again, kind of a jump ball. Some people thought it was offensive pass interference, but the guy made the play. But as Richie Hall explained it, there's a difference between the explosion plays where you're there and in coverage and it becomes a 50-50 ball, or those explosion plays where somebody forgot their assignment and a guy's running wide open. And so they just hope that that stuff starts to even out, that those 50-50 balls become, one of them's an interception and one of them's a touchdown. But it is going to be a test for Winnipeg. I thought in the last few weeks, Demario Houston has played really well since they cut Taekwon Glass and they moved Winston Rose to the other side. But that Bo Levi Mitchell and those guys saw what happened in Vancouver, and they're going to continue to try to attack downfield too.
Ed, I mentioned this on Monday's show, looking back to the game on Saturday, that while we spent so much time talking about the brilliance of Zach Collaros, which was absolutely deserved, in my opinion, maybe the most impactful thing that happened in the entire game was the Bombers establishing the run the way they did in the first quarter. They had more yards in the first quarter against BC than they did in the entire game the previous Monday against Toronto. And that, I think, put the BC defense a little bit more on their heels and opened up that opportunity for Zach to basically surgically dissect the Lions for the next 45 minutes. Do you think that's going to be part of Buck Pierce's game plan as well, to try and get Johnny Augustine and especially Brady Oliveira involved early and, most importantly, moving the chains?
Yeah, I think we're going to see some Greg McCrae like we did last week too, Huss, and him running the ball.
He's very dynamic, huh? What a great replacement when you lose a player like Nick Dembski.
Right. I say he's sort of the American version of Nick Dembski, right? Because he can play receiver, he can run the ball. That's what he did at the University of Central Florida too. But in respect to the ground game, it's been so much of what Winnipeg has done the last few years. It really is part of their identity. And if it's taken away, then you're right. It changes things. It changes the way defenses attack you because they can come after Zach Collaros a lot more, bring different kind of pressure because they know there's not going to be the ground game, or you're in second and long a lot because the ground game hasn't been established. So you're right. Of all the different subplots that happened from that game last Saturday, that's one of the most important ones, is that Winnipeg found a way to get their ground game going again. Now, you look at Calgary's depth chart, their front six is in my opinion, a lot more stout than the BC Lions front six. So this is going to be another great test, is to see if they can establish the line of scrimmage again on offense.
Ed Tait with us from BlueBombers.com tonight. Battle of the Undefeateds, Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Calgary Stampeders at IG Field. Ed, that was such a big win for the Bombers, and listen, it was a marquee game, great ratings. Pretty amazing that 6 days later, it's another battle of undefeateds, and it's sort of like, you're moving up, and this game, I imagine, is going to have like a playoff type feel, even though we're just in week 6 of the season.
I know, it's crazy. It's mid-July, right? We've got a lot of highway still to travel. And it says something about the West Division, right? You watched the game last night, and Edmonton squeaks out a win in Montreal. Edmonton's 2-4. They'd be in first place in the East Division, or I call it the least division. They've been brutal east of us, and this is just the way it's going to be all year out west. It's going to be, So next week, Winnipeg goes into Edmonton, who got some life after what they did in Montreal. It just continues. And then they've got Calgary after that. This is that ugly stretch of the schedule for Winnipeg where they've got 5 of 6 on the road. I like it. I think it's, I mean, the marketing departments love it, right? Because it's easier to sell these kind of games. But, man, the East Division has just been a dog's breakfast so far this year. It's just awful.
Did you see the game last night?
Absolutely. Just Montreal should have put that away, but they had, and look, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, Huss. I'm a big fan of Kahari Jones from his playing days here. He's a fine human being. And what they did to fire him and say it was for disciplinary reasons, and then for take 13, 16 penalties, whatever it was last
200
night.
200 yards just about.
It's just hilarious, right? That cost them the game. So anyway, that's my rant for the day about Kahari. I hope he enjoyed that, and Baron Miles too. The East has been a disaster, but meanwhile out here we get games like this. We get games like last Saturday in Vancouver. Look, the Banjo Bowl and Labor Day Classic. Saskatchewan's rolling along pretty good here too. This is only going to get more compelling as we get deeper in the season. Like you said, it's week 6, and we're already talking about these unbeaten matchups. It's beautiful.
Well, and the other thing that makes this such a big game, I think, for the fan base and why we expect a great crowd, and if you're on the fence, get out there tonight, get a couple tickets and show up, because the very strange part, and which kind of sucks because we know how great the summer games are, this is the Bombers' one home game out of a stretch of 5 out of 6 on the road. Yeah,
it's like I said last week, I don't know what the Bombers did to pick off the guy at the CFL headquarters that puts together the schedule, but he's had it out for Winnipeg. We're also the last team to get a bye. Some teams have already had their 2 byes already, so I haven't even looked that far ahead. I don't think the Bombers bye is until
I think it's after the Montreal game.
Yeah, I think it's in August, but it's crazy schedule. And to their credit, and this is again the Mike O'Shea influence, nobody's complaining about it. Nobody's talking about it. And they just soldier on. Again, Adam Bighill has said this before. This is their mindset. If you told them, okay, the game tonight, we can't play on the field. We're going to play in the parking lot on concrete, and you can't wear cleats. You got to wear flip-flops. All these guys would say, okay, let's go. And that comes from the boss, who was one of the toughest guys in the CFL when he played.
No doubt about it. Hey, I wanted to ask about Dalton Schoen. We got to talk to DC and maybe get him on the program at some point. But what's he like being around? I mean, he's been an absolute revelation as part of the receiving corps. And had a massive breakout game last week. But this wasn't a blip, Ed. It seemed to be like he's earning more and more trust from Zach Collaros game after game. And while we're at it, Greg Ellingson didn't seem to miss a beat after being away from Zach for all those years.
Well, let's start with Schoen. It's a real good story. Before rookie camp started, reached out to Danny McManus, the director of U.S. Scouting and assistant GM, and said, give me a handful of guys to keep an eye on. And the first name on his list was Dalton Schoen. So he's a guy that was a walk-on at K-State, Kansas State, never even got a college scholarship, and worked his way from walk-on, which means, you're the 10th guy getting reps. You got to fight and struggle every day. And he, at the end of his days at K-State, he was one of their better players. He got a look from the Kansas City Chiefs, from the LA Chargers, I believe. And then just a guy that the Bombers kept on their radar and brought him in. And right from day one, people were saying, hey, look at this guy. He's already figured out the waggle. He knows the different positions. And I just like his story. If you talk to him, you got to get him on us. If you talk to him, his attitude comes from being a walk-on. His dad told him, you got to be a street dog. You got to get out there and fight every day and claw for stuff. And I guess that's what he writes on his tape, on his wrists before every game, street dog. And he just brings that kind of nothing's ever been given to me attitude to every game, to every practice. And boy, he's really fit in well. And same thing with Ellingson. You mentioned Ellingson. We kind of knew what we were getting with him because he's, been a guy that's been in this league for forever and was, 5 1,000-yard seasons. He's better than I thought he was even. I knew he was good, but him and Zach Collaros have rekindled the old magic, and he just seems to be the guy that when things break down, Collaros looks to, and he's the guy that can move the chains. He can get in the score zone. He's a guy that you keep an eye on. Those two guys, if you're playing fantasy, I don't know what the prices are, but when the Bombers get into the red zone, that those are two of his Zach Collaros' favorite targets.
Well, at the price that they've got shown, he's going to have 100% ownership. I mean, listen, you pretty much have to have him in your lineup. Give you some more money to spend elsewhere. Ed, before we go, Bombers are on, what is it, a 20-1 streak of at home?
21-1 if you include the West Final.
So 21-1. What was the one?
It was a Hamilton game in 2019. I think just after they made the trade for Collaros. Chris Streveler started that game, and I think he was kind of banged up. And Hamilton came in and handed it to the Bombers. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It wasn't a last-second field goal or something. That was the one. Hamilton at home in October of 2019.
So we're pushing close to 3 years since the team's lost at home. Right. And I'll tell you what, I mean, touch wood. They'll look to keep it going tonight. But I'll say this. This is going to be the perfect theater for these two teams tonight. A perfect night in the summer here in Manitoba in the nicest stadium in the league. I'm sure the television numbers will be good, but the buzz in that stadium and around it beforehand, I think, is going to be something that we haven't seen in a little while, and I, for one, cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You and I have talked about how electric the Western Final was last year against Saskatchewan, even though it was minus a zillion. But there's something about summer games, right? When everybody's out there in shorts and flip-flops and just soaking it all up. But people are just there to party, too, and watch the football game. It's going to be fun in South Winnipeg tonight, and let's see if the Bombers can get to 6-0 for the first time since 1960 when they started off the season 10-0 that year.
As I said off the start of the show, drink a lot of this over the next little while because it'll help you out big time when we go on. Tailgate area gets going, what, 5 o'clock, 5:30 this afternoon?
That's a good question. I think 5:30, Huss, but don't take my word on that. They always have there's a lot going on. It's going to be fun tonight. The Rum Hut will be rocking. The tailgate area open, I think 5:30. It's, again, summertime. I don't even see the leaves in my backyard moving here. So it's perfect. Absolutely perfect for football.
I heard Wade on OB as well say, I believe the game day special tonight is the pierogi poutine. So that might go well with 8 or 10 brass ones, if you know what I'm saying. Eddie, thanks so much for doing this. Good luck to the squad tonight. And hopefully we're talking about a 6-0 team next week on WST.
Right on. Appreciate you having me on, Huss, as always, and see you later.
You got it. Have a great one tonight. There it is, our good friend Ed Tait of BlueBombers.com. 7:30 start tonight. I am fired up, as I think everyone is. If you're a Blue Bomber fan, these are the games. I mean, regardless of the opponent, Friday night in the summer, 30-degree day. It doesn't get much better than that. And then you add in the fact that something's got to give. There's zeros in the loss column of both of these teams, and looking forward to it. All right, speaking of hydrating, as I was mentioning, got to get that delicious Culligan water in because it is a hot one today, folks. And hey, Culligan water, locally owned and doing it for over 65 years here in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba, are the water experts, and will be hydrating many of us tonight. They've got it all. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, not to mention citywide water delivery services and commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Whether your needs are for your home, for your cottage this summer, or for your business, Culligan Water has you covered as the experts in the water game. 1200 Sargent Avenue. Give them a call at 694-5180 or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. The gang at Manitoba Battery, I know Donnie and the gang are going to be out there. Huge Bomber fans over at Manitoba Battery. They're also the home of the $99 Deep Cycle battery, and you won't find anyone in town that can compete with that price. Whether it's for your camper, your boat, or anything else, you'll get the best price and the best service from the guys and gals down at Manitoba Battery. Not to mention, they'll deliver it to you anywhere citywide. And hey, you'll be saving time. You'll be saving money. You won't have to deal with the big box stores and staff that frankly don't know batteries like Donnie and his gang down at Manitoba Battery. Learn more at manitobabattery.com or go visit the team in the coolest JetBlue building in Winnipeg at 1026 Logan Avenue. Open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. All right, it is game day, and many of you, if you're maybe negligent on getting your new blues on, might want to pop into our friends at Royal Sports before the game. A great selection of Blue Bomber gear just in time for the big game tonight. And while you're there, Greg has just texted us over some wild new hats from some pretty cool, unique minor league teams over the past number of years. The Montreal Royals, the Portland Beavers, the Tampa Smokers, and the Hawaii Islanders. If you do like sort of niche, short run, new era lids, there's some really cool, unique ones over at Royal. Royal has so much more, though. Soccer, baseball, tennis, disc golf, hockey, biggest hockey section in town, and tons of bikes, whether it's for sports merchandise, cool clothes on the King Skate and Snow Surf side, or whatever you need to dominate summer. Royal Sports has you covered. 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops, contests, and sale information. And listen, just before we bring in Brandon Rewucki, let's do a quick update on the Open Championship and the Barracuda Championship, because our guy, Aaron Cockrell, has not teed off yet, but was tied for first after yesterday's action. Aaron, 12 points. This is a Stableford event. This is his second consecutive tour start with some extra spots for DP World Tour players. So we'll be following Aaron Cockrell over the course of the weekend, and we wish him nothing but the best. And then, of course, we also have the Open Championship going on right now. And, my 30-1 ticket on Cam Smith's looking good. The Mullet is in first place after an 8 under 64 today. He's at 13 under. Cameron Young, 2 shots back at 11 under after a 3 under 69. DJ and Rory McIlroy at 9 under. Rory's still on the course. He's got 3 more holes to play. And Scotty Scheffler, Masters champion at 8 under par. What a weekend we've got coming up at the home of golf. Of course, our golf reports are brought to you by our friends at Breezy Bend, one of Winnipeg's finest public courses or private courses. If you're thinking about a long-term home for you and your family, think Breezy Bend. Find out more online at breezybend.ca or talk to Corey Johnson, our good friend, GM of the decade, about getting on that waiting list for next season. All right, let's chop it up with our guy, Brandon Rewucki, heading into the weekend. Rew, what's going on, man? Great to have you back on the show.
Happy to be back, man. Just watched Hovland eagle from the fescue at St. Andrews. So anytime you can watch Open Championship weekend, it's going to be pretty good. So I'm doing all right, man.
Who are you on heading into the weekend? Who's exciting you? Who are you pulling for?
I mean, sentimentally Tiger, obviously, but that was
that ship has sailed.
That literally took 2 swings before that one was in the gutter. I mean, Rory's been so close this year. Like, I know everyone's been on Zalatoris, and I know Rory he was probably the betting favorite going in, right?
Oh yeah.
But I feel like this is the time that he finally breaks through. I got good vibes around Rory this weekend, so I'm gonna stick with him. But oh boy, if you sprinkle a little on Smith before the tourney, you're feeling pretty damn good about yourself right now.
Well, especially, I got him at 30, and by the time we did the lock shop, he was at 24, and by the time they teed off, he was at 22, so obviously wasn't the only one. And of course, Rory and DJ potentially playing in the second last group. Sign me up for that. And I'll be a motivated Rory McIlroy to flex on the live guys, who, by the way, they barely show on TV. It is just hilarious. Like, I don't know how much of the tournament you were watching, but the live guys not getting too much TV time right now, and I have a feeling that was planned. All right, listen, I would love just to talk about the Open Championship and maybe the Bombers for the next 20 minutes, and we could just avoid all the hockey stories that are probably driving everybody crazy. And I'll get your thoughts on the Flyers before we're done. You can choose to just walk away. But listen, and I know, you were not expecting huge splashes from the Winnipeg Jets at free agency, but we were wondering if with some of these deals that have been so rumored and publicly talked about, like Captain Blake Wheeler, like somebody on the blue line. And that hasn't happened yet. Now, I realize fans are impatient and there is plenty of time. But the fact of the matter is, Brandon, we've gone through the draft where often trades happen. The dust is sort of settling on free agency right now. And I guess Cheveldayoff will have a better idea of where the landscape is and what those opportunities are. But not entirely that easy just to quickly remake your team trading players right now. And we know how important it is for Winnipeg to get full value and do it through trade because, as I said, unlike a lot of other teams, free agency, not really that much of a tool, at least to get high-end talent here to the Jets.
Yeah, you didn't expect a major Gaudreau-like splash, but you expected maybe walking into the shallow end or something. It was basically and status quo for the Jets when it comes to the free agency. Not really a whole lot, but like, got to do something at some point, right? Like it's been so quiet for so long. And I think too, when a fan base is promised transformational changes and it's the middle of freaking July and absolutely nothing has happened other than you downgraded at the backup goalie spot, I think fans are rightfully going to be a little pissed off about how this offseason has gone. It hasn't been a disaster like some off seasons have across the NHL, but disappointing, I think, is kind of putting it mildly. I mean, the Jets, if their whole goal was to get back into contention, maybe find yourself just below the Avalanche and the Lightning and some of the higher upper echelon teams in the league, you have to make more than just bring in a new coach and swap out the backup goalie. Like there needs to be some significant moves here. And you combine that with the Cheveldayoff presser after the first day of free agency hit. And, accountability was the key word last year. Going into the season this year, for me, the key word is delusional because this team is so out there. They're so delusional. If they think running it back with Rick Bowness behind the bench is going to equal a long playoff run, I just don't get how that could be your legitimate mindset going into this year. And now that we're, yes, it is only 2 days past free agency, but guess what? 20 teams in the NHL have less than $5 million in cap space. A lot of these rosters are pretty much set going into the year. Like there's not a lot of wiggle room for these teams to try to deal with now. And that includes the Winnipeg Jets. And that includes if you're trying to move $8+ million in Blake Wheeler's salary, those options are extremely limited, if not completely eliminated right now.
Yeah. And listen, I know he said he was sort of pressed by the media and said, if you come back with this roster, you feel good about it, and he said, yes. Obviously, I'm not too sure what else is he going to say. I really don't think that is the plan. But I think it is many of the things that we expected to be done over the offseason. And frankly, many people, myself included, that at least something would have happened by now. We have a better idea of how things might change from last year. Still haven't happened. And now on top of all of that, Brandon, you've got this Pierre-Luc Dubois situation. And listen, he played his ass off last year. I thought he was a great player when there was a lot of questions about the commitment and the professionalism and the engagement level of other members of the Jets. We certainly weren't saying that about Dubois. So for him to be going down Eric Lindros territory right now with his agent and the Montreal media doing everything they can to work his way ASAP out of Winnipeg to Montreal, that was a plot twist that I don't think anyone was expecting. And that's got to be a massive, massive problem right now for the Winnipeg Jets as to how they handle this.
Yeah, like, do they not have tampering in the French dictionary? Is that not
well, I guess he's an RFA right now, right? So, I mean, he's technically an RFA. No, not at all.
I guess it's technically tampering still when you talk about a player who's contractually obligated to another team. The reactionary lizard part of my brain, and I'm sure a lot of Jets fans feel the same way, is like, look, if you don't want to be here, don't be here then. Like, let's just move him and be done with it. I kind of get that, to be honest, because it's beyond annoying to have this happen time and time again. And if you're plotting your exit 2 years down the road, then all right, we'll give it to you. If that's the way you want to go about it, then go ahead and be our guest. But the problem is, if you do move Pierre-Luc Dubois right now, like, what's the package coming back? Is it just draft picks and futures? Because if that's the case, then the Jets probably should have went into rebuild mode earlier this offseason and let's move the whole game, Scheifele, Hellebuck, Wheeler, and you know what, we'll take a run at Bedard and try to build around Connor and Ehlers and Perfetti, and maybe 2 years down the road we'll be at a much healthier spot and we can figure out a way to get this new core, leading us into where we were a few seasons ago. I just don't see a Dubois trade being feasible right now unless the Jets get back a 23-year-old 1B centerman. If they're committed to trying to win this year, there's really no point into making the move, no matter how badly he wants out of Winnipeg and into Montreal right now. And if you're the Habs, why are we giving up any assets knowing that we can sign him for free and not give up anything just a year or two down the road? And we've got some time with the young group that they're building out there as well.
Let me ask you this. I think it's highly likely that you are exactly right, that the right deal for the Winnipeg Jets is not on the table for Montreal, and they certainly don't want to seem like they can be strong-armed by, a guy in his agent that PLD should have been in the NBA. Maybe this act would work in the NBA. Say, hey, I want to get traded and I want to go here, and 10 minutes later you're on that team. That ain't how it works in the National Hockey League, and it sure as hell doesn't for a team like the Winnipeg Jets that needs to handle their assets in a different way than many teams that can make bigger splashes in free agency and attract players that way. So if, and I think it's highly likely, he doesn't get traded and doesn't get what he wants, I mean, what does that do to the atmosphere around the team when we get to training camp? I mean, there was already all the question marks about Mark Scheifele and his commitment to Winnipeg and the team based on everything that happened last year and his exit comments. To add this on top of it, I mean, you've built all this entire plan has been to get two elite centers in the middle. And neither of these guys, I think anyone would say they're entirely sure that they'll be there and be the guys that this team needs and expected they would when they either signed them to a contract or traded for them.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we've got practice here. Jacob Trouba did the same thing, albeit not directly naming a destination, and played pretty damn good in his final year in Winnipeg, right? Like, that's why he earned that $8 million contract. What did he have? Like 50 points, power play, PK, all that stuff. I'm not even, I don't know. I'm not necessarily worried about like the production side of thing when it comes to Dubois, even though he had that unceremonious exit out of Columbus. Like I still anticipate him, coming to play and bringing it because, let's face it, he's a few years away from UFA. And if he wants to start building a case and making some dough, he's going to have to perform on the ice for 2 more seasons now. But this is kind of why I thought, it was the perfect opportunity for the Jets to completely shift their leadership core going into this year to avoid something like this, right? Because, and I don't know like what Dubois' big beef is right now with the team, and maybe it's just the location, but you had a chance to move Mark Scheifele for major assets. You had a chance to move Blake Wheeler and his $8 million salary, likely for, not a whole lot coming back, but there was this big time opportunity to completely revitalize the organization and breathe new life into what's been a stale team. And instead we're in run it back mode once again. So like this, if this comes to fruition and there is big time turmoil inside the locker room, there is all this negativity surrounding the team, it completely falls at the feet of Kevin Cheveldayoff. Like he's built this, right? Like this is his baby right now. He had an opportunity to change things and shape this team in a completely different direction. And I would feel absolutely no sympathy for anybody in the Jets organization if this comes to a boil once again. You had the opportunity to change it. You didn't want to get bold and make some moves, and now you've got to live with some potential.
Well, that being said, I mean, listen, do we know? I mean, if it was like, do you make a bad trade just for the sake of making a trade? I say no to that. But, and you know what, sometimes it's harder and sometimes it takes a long time to make these trades. Like, I have no doubt that if there was an obvious trade, like, it's not like this team is so married. Certainly, I mean, I'll put Mark Scheifele at the top of that list. What we heard from people inside the organization, from Scheifele himself afterwards, I have no doubt that if there was a no-brainer trade for Mark Scheifele last year or over the course of this offseason, that deal would have been made. But at the same point, I mean, you can't trade something for 2 quarters on a dollar because of what it does. And this Dubois thing, even more so, where obviously there was no real talk about moving Dubois at the end of last season. And it's sort of the player and his agent and his camp are really trying to sort of force the Jets. It's a terrible precedent to get forced into, that players think that they can just basically go KD and decide that they're leaving and then get exactly what they want to the team that they want. The deal has to make sense for the Winnipeg Jets. And that is, and I'm sure, number one on Kevin Cheveldayoff's list. And anytime you make a trade like this, there's a huge amount of risk involved. And listen, maybe you can argue that they're being somewhat more risk adverse, but the risk on the other side of coming back after everything we saw last season, expecting Rick Bowness to bring a magic wand in the dressing room and do a quick 180, I think is probably a losing bet.
Yeah, but scared money doesn't make any money. And I don't think anybody's saying the Jets need to go 50 cents on the dollar, but maybe you go 85 cents on the dollar. That's a better exchange rate than we got right now.
I really wonder about Scheifele's value, though, in the league right now. We'd heard enough last year about the way he was thought by, opponents, by some referees, and frankly, his own teammates at the end of the year. And for a guy like that was playing in a very one-dimensional fashion, if you're on the outside looking in, how much are you willing to give up that guy, even though he's able to score? Like, is that a guy that's going to make you a championship level team? Or is that a guy that's going to come in and try and, score as many points as he can and help him get a new contract, but doesn't really care about the overall team goal? I'm not saying that, but I mean, certainly that would be very understandable for people outside looking in to think about that when they were considering paying serious assets to get a guy like Mark Scheifele on your squad.
Yeah, because, if me on my couch and my sweats could see it, Joe Sakic and Steve Eisman and whoever else you want to name could see it. But having said that, too, like, there have been way more flawed players for various reasons than Mark Scheifele that have been traded for a pretty handsome package going back the other way. Like, we're still talking about, even with his flaws, a team will, acknowledge the flaws. And we see a lot of the times, though, they'll push them aside and say, point a game center, very affordable salary for a couple of seasons. We'll take the plunge on that because high-end skill is ultimately what leads to championships in the NHL. So I would imagine there was still a tremendous amount of value placed on Mark Scheifele across the league. Maybe not to the point that you're, getting this superstar level trade package back in return. But again, enough that you feel pretty solid about the return, and more so you win when it comes to everything off the ice with your organization. I'll continue to make it, but the Minnesota Wild did themselves a big favor by jettisoning Suter and Parise this past offseason to tremendous constraints, right? Like, they lose talent-wise, and they screw themselves when it comes to the salary cap, yet they didn't not only miss a beat, they found a way to take their game to another level this past season. So that's the kind of path.
Well,
here,
counterpoint on that, and I'm with you. We talked a lot about, look at the Minnesota Wild last year. They were great. They got bounced in the first round, and now they've got 12, 14, and $14 million cap penalties the next couple of years. I mean, will we be saying this was such a brilliant move in the next 2 years?
I think it says a lot that the Wild minus $12 million are in a better position right now than the Winnipeg Jets with a full salary cap. I think that speaks volumes.
Even after the Fiala trade?
Yeah. Right now, if you had the option, Wild roster, Jets roster, going into this season, which one are you taking?
I think I'd still say the Jets, to be honest with you. Now, there's a lot of internal things. Like, on paper, I think I say the Jets. But in reality, with everything else that we're talking about, I certainly hear your argument on the other side.
Yeah, and that's, look, on paper, this team should be going deep for a while now, but the last time they went deep, Dustin Byfuglien was 35 years old and playing 28 minutes a night. Like, 5 years ago is a long time ago. This isn't the same team. They've been overpassed by the St. Louis Blues, the Minnesota Wild, and maybe even the Nashville Predators of all teams. Just in the Central Division alone, let alone what's going on out there in the Pacific. Like, to me, when you look at what Minnesota's done, and the fact that it's even a debate with them being so limited when it comes to spending, I think just goes to show that this is a really flawed team. There's an opportunity to revamp this roster this offseason. We haven't seen it yet. We certainly can still see it, but put me in the boat right now that I'm not too optimistic we're going to see changes that a lot of the fan base is going to be super excited about. And I do wonder, 2 months into the season, if we see not a half empty Canada Life Center, but a couple thousand people here aren't there. A couple thousand there aren't there anymore. We were billed a pretty important offseason here, and it's getting closer to the start of the regular season now, and hasn't been a whole lot of change whatsoever.
Well, and I'll tell you what, if the one big move is, trading Pierre-Luc Dubois for 2 or 3 lesser assets, I don't think that, they may have to do it at some point. Certainly as opposed to, we'll see how he handles himself. And listen, as I said, I've got no issue with what he did last year. And I don't know when this started or when he was thinking about wanting out. And I realized that was probably a pretty shitty room to be in last year, especially when they were losing and, falling so short of their goals. But we're in a very different, everything that's happened over the past few weeks to me has completely changed. His probably position within the team, within the organization, and absolutely within the fan base. And if all of a sudden you got a massive fire on the Dubois front as well, never mind what had happened with Scheifele and Wheeler and all of that stuff. And I'll tell you what, the other guys that I'm thinking about, what are you thinking right now if you're Nikolai Ehlers or you're Kyle Connor? They were pretty clear about what they thought last year, and I'm sure that those players were expecting, some changes, and again, a head coaching change is significant, and Rick Bowness has a lot is expected on him, but even more, that's probably fair right now. And I said the same thing about Dave Lowry. He was in an unwinnable situation, and I don't know how Rick Bowness can come in if we've got essentially the same group, adding in the PLD problems that have emerged over the last couple of weeks, and expect that, we're just going to behave like last year didn't happen. There's no mulligans in pro sport.
Yeah, and Ehlers and Connor are one thing. They seem pretty happy, at least. So I'm just not going to worry about that when there's all the other things that are going on. But for me, outside of the names we mentioned, you got to be freaking out about Connor Hellebuck's status, right? If we're being honest, he's what's kept this team basically either a playoff fringe team or a playoff team these past 2 seasons. If he's average to below average, we're talking about a couple top 10 picks these last few years for the Winnipeg Jets. And being the ultimate competitor that he is, seeing what's happening on the ice is one thing, but the crap that's going on off the ice combined on top of that right now, he's probably just sick and tired of it. And I think that's maybe the biggest concern surrounding the team right now, is the fact that their Vezina caliber goalie isn't being given any reason whatsoever to re-up and sign long-term with this team once his contract comes to an end. And that, to me, is a decision that has to happen on his future after this regular season comes to an end. And maybe even before it, at the upcoming trade deadline, right? The clock is really, really ticking on what to do with Connor Hellebuck. And if he's not happy, it's unimaginable. And I hate to think what the blue paint would look like for the Winnipeg Jets without him in it, but you'd have to have those exact same discussions about, well, all right, what are we trying to look for in a potential Connor Hellebuck trade if he's not happy with this organization anymore?
Well, it's a great point, and I guess one of the other things I wanted to ask you, what are the lessons learned by the Calgary Flames' tough dose of reality this week with Johnny Gaudreau, and how do you think that resonates inside the general manager's office here in Winnipeg, knowing that you've got 2 of your prized assets, Mark Scheifele and Pierre-Luc Dubois, with 2 years left of team control, and Connor Hellebuck as well? Once you get to the next year, if you're not signing these guys, I think it's incumbent to avoid the disaster that happened with the Calgary Flames and move sooner as opposed to later on those players.
Oh, 100%. And I think going into next season, if they're all under contract still, and if you look at your roster and it's not a bona fide Stanley Cup contender, I'm talking minimum top 5 roster in the NHL, then you're moving all 3 of those guys if they're not willing to re-up with you on a long-term deal. It's just, it's way too risky. At least the Flames, I get where the Flames went with this. They kind of wanted to see how the team looked under Sutter.
They looked great.
They turned into a cup contender, right? I know it didn't work out well for them in the end, but got to the second round, number 1 seed, had a chance, didn't work out. That's kind of the price you pay sometimes. But that was also just one asset. The Jets would have 3 of them on their hands here. So they're going to have to make a really, really difficult decision. And I do ultimately wonder if that decision comes at the end of this upcoming season or if it comes at some point during this season where it just becomes too much. And if somebody makes a sweetheart offer, you just bite the bullet and take the plunge. It's pretty crazy, man, that it does feel like a rebuild is a lot closer on the horizon than a reload and a load up for a Stanley Cup run these next 2 years.
No, I agree with you. Brandon Rewucki's with us. Make sure you check out Skates and Plates wherever you get your favorite podcast with more on the Winnipeg Jets and the National Hockey League. I guess I don't think we're quite in misery yet, but we could be on the way there. But maybe we can make Jet fans feel better by getting the pulse of the Flyers fan base right now. I'll say, listen, I've said this to you before. I think most of you Flyer fans are complete psychos to begin with. That being said, though, I have talked to a few Flyer fans this week, and despondent does not even scratch the surface on where they are. What is the pulse of that fan base right now? And dare I say, I was talking to Frank Saravelli. He said, it's bordering on apathy right now. I mean, this is the first time he can remember in a long, long time where the Flyers are not even a thing in Philly right now. And the only thing you really hear is complete outrage from the hardcores that are absolutely despondent at the moves that have been made over the course of this offseason in the direction of the club.
Yeah, it's not, by the way, it's not Skates and Plates anymore. It's just Plates after what Chuck Fletcher did. We are no longer a hockey podcast. That is completely off the table.
Every week you bring a psychiatrist in as a guest, and it's just essentially a counseling podcast.
Yeah, it's a 30-minute counseling session to try to get me back on track here. It's disgusting. Like, I can't even properly put into words the level of rage and disgust that I felt at what Chuck Fletcher's done. I hate him. I hate him. I hate his guts.
As I said, they're all psychos, people.
It's the level of incompetence is staggering. Like Peter Chiarelli would look at what's going on here and be like, this is just too much. You can't run a team like this. And we're talking about, it's one thing if the Coyotes do something like this, you know what I mean? Like a franchise that's kind of always been poorly run, like the Browns, the Lions, like teams like that. That's what the Flyers are right now. It's not even a discussion of if they're the most poorly run team in hockey. It's who is more poorly run than them in all of sports. And maybe Dan Snyder in Washington's the only one that comes close, because I don't get how you can legitimately look at what they've done here as the person overseeing all that and go, yep, that's according to plan. Nailed all of my steps there. Oh, what's that? The hometown superstar wants to come home? Nah, no, we're good. We don't want to give up any assets because we might be rebuilding. But then you'll ship that out for the KKK blue liner and give him $5 million a year when no other team wanted to pay him. And then and Ristolainen, and then this, and it's just on and on and on. And the only silver lining in all this is that I get to save $250 this upcoming year. Because I don't
no
need to buy center ice. Yeah, no, there's no need. What's the point? And apathy is there's the rage right now that everybody's dealing with because there's no direction and there's no plan right now. But everyone that I've talked to is just I'm out. Why would I spend 2.5 hours a night 82 times over the next season to subject myself to misery and a lack of entertainment? And I've never felt worse about the Flyers in my life. I've never felt less interested to watch a Flyers game in my life. And Tortorella's behind the bench this year. But I could care less. It just doesn't matter anymore. So wake me up when the Bedard draft lottery happens. That's the only interest I have in watching any Flyers hockey this season. Other than that, though, I am done. I will not spend a second. I will not spend a penny, whatever it is. They are out of my life until there is major change. And I know that somebody with an actual brain is running that organization.
Just quickly, on a happier note, we got a big football game tonight. Bombers get to 6-0.
Sorry, I'm out of breath.
From one end of the spectrum to the other. Let's talk about a championship organization that just seems to win every time out.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt really confident about the BC game there was just a lot of people jumping on the lines a little bit early. I don't know if I feel as confident about the Stampeders game. I really hope so. I got family from Calgary, and they chirp and they talk all the time, and it's just so annoying. So and they're in town this weekend too for a wedding. So I'm praying the Bombers find a way to get it done. I've always felt like when the Bombers lose their first game of the year, it's going to be to somebody like Montreal or Edmonton, like one of those like 1-4 teams that comes out and stuns the champs. I think they'll take advantage. I think they'll take care of business tonight. I hope so, at least. A little bit of positivity, please.
Love it. Okay, take a breath, get some water in you. Have a great weekend. And who knows how we'll all be feeling next week when we get together on WST. Take it easy, dude.
Yeah, don't call me next week. I'm not doing this anymore. Have a good one.
Later. Brandon Rewucki. And again, check out Plates wherever you get your favorite podcast. The skates have been removed from it. Great stuff with Brandon Rewucki on the show today. Hey, big shout out to our friends at Knott Auto Corp. I know Trevor Knott. Of course, we've seen the Milt Stiegel commercial. Trev got a brand new sweet white bomber jersey with just Milt on the back, synonymous with excellence, as is Knott Auto Corp. If you're looking for a new vehicle, why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Knott team? Start your search at Waverly and McGillivray, Knott Auto Corp, and you can check out everything they've got going online at knott.ca. Well, I don't think I need to explain to you that a couple cold 1919s might be a great addition to the weekend. Heck, it might be a great addition to tailgate plans before the big game tonight. Whether you're popping into your local beer store or liquor mart or heading down to Little Brown Jug on William Avenue, pick up the great taste of summer with 1919 and all their summer beers as well, including the Folkfest Lager. And you can also order online for a citywide delivery online at littlebrownjug.ca. As we mentioned, the Princess Auto tailgate's getting going before the game tonight. $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs and pop. DJ Finesse spinning. Great prizes from our friends at Princess Auto as well. So make sure that's part of your plan for tonight. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsor of the Bombers and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them at one of 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And hey, if there was ever a day to pop by the Nick and Nicky DQ, I'd say this weekend is it. 30 today, getting up to potentially 35 on Sunday. It's blizzard season, the good kind here in Winnipeg, and Nick and Nicky got you covered. 4 locations in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba: DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's. Pop in there for a delicious blizzard treat. Maybe celebrate another Bomber win tomorrow with some vanilla soft serve. And hey, if you need one of their world-famous ice cream cakes, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. They'll customize it for you and get ready to pick up quick and easy at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. All right, we're going to lighten the mood on the program a little bit right now. Marbles is coming up at the end of the program, but we played a little clip of this during the free agency show on Wednesday. We figured we'd finish off a week that's been a little trying for some Jet fans with some great laughs and insight from one of the funniest guys ever to put a Jet jersey on, and that is one of our favorites, Tim Stapleton. Caught up with Tim a little earlier this week, and we hit it all. His time here in Winnipeg, playing around the world, what it was like to be a Jet in that first year, and of course, the pressing question that we all need to know, where is Buff? Here's Tim Stapleton on Winnipeg Sports Talk. What's up, Tim? How you doing?
Not much. Thanks for having me on. I was just thinking about what you said. I said this earlier, obviously, but, I always wish if I had better line mates, I wouldn't be on a podcast talking about me selling beef jerky. But other than that, things are good. Things are good.
Well, you've always had a Hall of Fame sense of humor, that's for sure. Hey, first off, I mean, how is the jerky game? How's life after hockey, being a dad? And you seem to be quite busy. We'll get to the podcast in a minute, but was always interested in your story of getting into the South African beef jerky.
Oh, I still wonder how I did myself, but it's there's a partner of mine that majority owner, this guy named Jim Mullins, who I live by, and his family's a big Irish Catholic family that made all the ketchup for McDonald's, and he lived out in South Africa. It's a long story, but he kind of just, I remember in 2018, I was playing in Germany, and I was sitting in my hotel room, and my teammate at the time, roommate, was just like, is this your last year? What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. And then like Jim called me and was like, hey, you want to be my biltong parker? And I was like, done. I just retired. That's what I told my roommate. And I went home, and that was, the rest was history. And, I'm learning a lot. I think for me, it's a lot of just progressing. It's no different than anything in life, really, just trying to learn and get better and sell. And, I'm pretty bad at it. But yeah, it's going good. The product speaks for itself.
What are the days like for you? I mean, are you hustling? Are you on the road a lot? I mean, is it, coming out of the pandemic, it's just a lot of Zoom meetings?
I mean, I straightened out my slice in golf, if that's what you mean by hustling. So yeah, I mean, we got a little bit more of a straighter tee drive, but no, it's actually hard. I feel like I'm still like transitioning. I think that's no joke with any athlete, and probably any transition with anybody in life. It's just, managing priorities. I feel like I'm doing this, I'm on call. I'm the only guy, like kind of like employee aside from Jim. But like the day-to-day stuff, it's just me at the moment. We're a startup. But yeah, I think overall it's just learning, kind of creating that structure and that schedule. I used to be told like be on the bus at 8, use the bathroom at 8:30. Like, you know what I mean? Like now it's like I wake up and I'm like, you want me to create this? But I'm transitioning still, but it's busy days, and then there's days too where it's pretty relaxed, but it's just kind of learning and trying to make things better with the business.
For those people that don't remember our previous visits talking about it, what is biltong?
Google. I mean, I thought you were
just
talking
Google
about I thought you were going to say if people don't remember who Tim is.
No.
Thanks, guys. Most people don't. But just go ahead and Google. There's a thing called Google. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, fill people in on what the product is, the biltong, not your career. We'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay. Now you got me. Now I got to like sell right now. So I'm nervous. Let me get my cue cards on this one. It's like I didn't know it was healthy until I actually read the back of the package. No, I'm just kidding. It's a South African beef jerky, and the reason I say that it's actually not beef jerky, but over here in the U.S. or like North America, that's what we know. And it's an air-dried curing process. That's what biltong means, and it originated in South Africa. So it's a South African style curing process of. They do any animal out there. They do. You can biltong anything. We just do beef here in the U.S., and it's very similar to beef jerky. It's just a little bit healthier option. It's no sugar, less sodium. And for me, I can honestly say it is kind of like it does benefit someone who is trying to eat better. I'm not saying you're going to skate faster or score more goals. I'm just saying that it's just a healthier option, and it's good. We've gotten a lot of great feedback. It's just more of trying to get it out there and get it into people's hands.
Now, in addition to, of course, the beef jerky biz or the biltong biz, you hooked up with Chris Nyland, and we had Knuckles on a few weeks ago, and we're talking to him about a bunch of things, the playoffs, the Habs, and it sort of came out that he was working with you on this podcast.
It was hard for him to kind of admit that, wasn't it?
No, man, he was fired up about it. He sort of told to come together. But from your perspective, I mean, you're, of course, a Hall of Fame guest on Spit and Chicklets. If people weren't aware, I mean, we obviously remember you from that magical year here in Winnipeg with the team coming here. But I think a lot of hockey fans maybe were introduced to you through that. And that is the platform that got you quite a bit of notoriety with Biz and Wit.
I have to like tell people, like, I also played hockey. Like, like I'm not like, I went and skated. I haven't skated in like a couple of years, but the one time I did in the last year, because I live like outside, I live in Indiana and hockey's not that popular. Chicago's obviously close by, but I skated out in like this rink in Michigan. It was one of those like pickup hockeys, and where like the manager from like Chipotle is telling you like how open he is back door, and it's like, dude, I see you. I play, you know what I mean? So I'm like trying, just to, just be patient with it, have fun with it. But when I got there, people just right away were like, "Are you like the Stapleton?" And I'm thinking, from Spit and Chicklets, like tell us a Russian story. I'm like, guys, I played hockey, and I'm in witness protection program from this whole episode. And, things haven't been, no, I'm just kidding. I love those guys on Chicklets. I think I have so much respect for them. I think they're just so they're not only are they good people, but they just speak organically, and they, what they've done with their show. And speaking of raw knuckles, like that opened the way for guys like us to kind of come in and try something. So they're the top, and they're the Mount Rushmore, and I'm a big fan of them for sure.
How'd you tell us about getting together with Nyland? I mean, you just get a call going, what the heck? You want to get me on here? And then and he said you guys did the first ones in person, if I'm not mistaken.
No, well, it was, he just called me and was just like, you're doing a podcast. I never met him. He just bullied me into, I just show up. I don't even listen to the show. I just show up and act like I know what I'm talking about. No, we crossed paths through, just post-career stuff. I know he had a situation with his old profession. I think it was like radio or something with maybe TSN or whatever.
Yeah, it was the station in Montreal.
Yeah, and so then he started this podcast with his producer from his documentary, and then I don't know. Like, I know we met a little bit through the Zoom stuff, and then he just kind of threw my name on the table, and then it was kind of funny because we just all met on Zoom actually to start, and we just started kind of bringing people in and recording them, and we were recording people as mock guests. Like, we had the producer's son on 17 times. It's like, dude, I don't want to interview. I don't want to keep interviewing this year. And I played with them, Dylan Reese. And it's it just kind of all has gone, kind of week by week. It's been fun because I'm learning and it's been a lot of fun. And Nux is awesome. And I did go to Pittsburgh and meet him in person. And it was the first time anyone in the game of hockey's ever saw me physically and been like, wow, you're a lot bigger than I thought. That's what he said. And I'm like, man, that's the best compliment I've ever heard. Usually people are telling me to stand up and, whatever the short jokes are, but he's an awesome guy. He's as everyone knows, he's got his story, but he's also a no BS, just honest person. And I'm grateful to be able to kind of be working with him.
Tim Stapleton's with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Tim, what do you remember when you think back of your career? I mean, you played all over the place. I'd imagine that 11-12 season here in Winnipeg, moving from Atlanta, the excitement around, it must stand out amongst at least the atmospheres that you've played in. I mean, now that we're sort of 10 years plus removed from it, when you think back, what comes to mind about that season here with the Jets?
That's a good one because it's definitely the best year from all aspects of a year could be, I guess. Just for me, I was put on waivers and then I stuck around and then I got to play, but it was just in the city. And I always laugh and just say we were the lovable losers because it didn't matter. I know now it matters, right? Playoffs, winning and losing. Then it was just they were happy we were back. So we were just it didn't matter. We can win, lose, and we were just welcomed. And for me, yeah, it was awesome. Not only do we have a great locker room and obviously the fans, I always say this, I've probably repeated this before, but it's just funny coming from Chicago, and Chicago's like a hockey. They love hockey. They love the Blackhawks, but they don't love hockey kind of type. If you're at a bar and there's Blackhawks game on when it's over, they're not putting on the Columbus game, right? Yeah. And so where I'm going with this is you go to a Hawks game, everyone's just yelling shoot from the red line and having a party and fun, and it's great for the game. But in Winnipeg, they're so knowledgeable, all of Canada. And I could go to go to the dry cleaners and the guy there is telling me what we should do on the power play. And I'm just man, were you just in the meeting? Because you're exactly right. So for me, it was just kind of that almost bubble. It's hard to explain. Sometimes I'd come back into Chicago and just be why is no one recognizing me? Kind of attitude, And so I was kind of, maybe brainwashed in that way, but overall it was awesome for me. It was the best year of my life, especially for my career. And I would, if I could do that all over again, I would.
We've had a lot of discussions on the show about coaching. Of course, Maurice leaving, Dave Lowry come in, and now Rick Bowness taking over going into next season. But I've got to ask you, when someone asks you about Claude Noel, what comes to mind? He seemed like such a character, at least for us to deal with in the media.
I always say for me, he was awesome because he kind of gave me a chance, but he was I don't know how to explain it. He was different. I never played for a guy that was just so kind of positive, spiritually almost. It was just, when I got put on waivers, I packed my bag. I took it to I think I was staying at Wheeler's house or the airport, and 48 hours. I knew I was going to clear waivers and go to St. John's. And Claude called me And I knew it was like the exit speech, right? Like, you're you know, and he did. He gave me like the top 6. You're not a top 6 guy here. Like, good luck, you know, whatever. And 2 days later, I cleared waivers, and Chevy was like, hey, we don't really have any extra. Like, come back to practice, you know? So, like, I came back, and I'm walking in with my bag, and the first guy I see is Claude, and he gives me a fist bump. He's like, you're still here, you know? And I'm like, man, this guy, you know? And I just, for me, it was just a moment of like, this guy's something. But I know guys maybe had, you know, their differences, but for me, he was great. Just because he gave me a chance and kind of was honest with me. And I thought overall Claude is a great person, and he was a good coach for sure. I think, yeah, he knew the game. You know, he was, like you said, he was animated.
No, he was an all-time beauty, I'll tell you that. I mean, we weren't in the room, and obviously the team, you know, had its ups and downs, but there was never a dull moment when Claude Noel was around a microphone as well. And I mean, to go from there to Maurice, I mean, we sort of have been spoiled, at least from a soundbite perspective in Winnipeg. That's for sure. We'll see how things go. You know, with free agency on the calendar right now, I wanted to ask you, Tim, about, I mean, you know, you played in the KHL in 3 different spots, the Swiss League, but for guys that are sort of bubble NHLers, what is this time of year like? I mean, we spend so much time talking about Johnny Gaudreau deciding whether he's going to take $9.5 million for 8 years, and you know the other top guys. But what are the more rank and file? Like, how stressful is it? And what's going on? I mean, when you go into the first day of free agency, in your position, what are those conversations with your agent like?
Well, first off, I didn't have the Johnny Gaudreau problems. I wish I did. Like, you know, maybe I'll take $7 million here or whatever you just said, but it was more just like, am I going to play hockey, or like, am I going to go like bag groceries? No, honestly, for me, I was a mental, you know, I was my own worst enemy at these times. I think I signed a 1-year contract, pretty much my, you know, my whole career. Maybe 1 year I signed a 2-year thing with Atlanta, but it's hard. It's really hard. And I think anyone can agree that's in that situation of, you know, especially when you're an NHL guy and you don't know if you're going to, you know, are you going to go overseas or are you going to stay? You kind of the unknown. But the talks with the agents, usually, I don't know. I mean, it all depends. Like it really depends on what you want and what's realistic. You know, for me, it was always trying to be in the NHL. So I was always like hovering around like, you know, can I get a one-way, this and that? But I don't know if I'm making any sense here. I'm kind of rambling. So I think the question you're asking, though, is as far as being in that situation where you're a free agent, you're a bubble guy, it's not the best thing sometimes. It is just a worry and just kind of like, what am I going to do? But usually it plays out. I think guys that really want to play in the NHL try to stay and play in the NHL. And some guys that want to make money. I'm not saying I don't know who does that. I don't know who just leaves and goes over for money. Like I don't judge those people, but I understand it.
What's the conversation like when you realize that the best offer on the table is going to Russia? Like, was that a hard sell on you, or was it obviously this is the best deal, let's take it, and I'm going?
That's a good question, but like there was a lockout, and we knew that. And I was talking to Winnipeg, and like Winnipeg wasn't like saying like don't come back. They were just kind of like, you know, gonna figure out a few things, and then it was kind of discussed that maybe there was a fit for come back. I wasn't gonna like make any more money. It was just like kind of do what I was doing, be that, you know, kind of like utility guy and play like fourth line and don't have to fight and skate as fast as I can and not get scored on, and then like maybe play the power play. And I was all for that. It was just the lockout and the money that I was getting in Russia just kind of at that point, you know, made sense for me. And then when I got to Russia, I mean, I had a good year, and then I played in the All-Star game, and just kind of from there was just the right move for me. But yeah, it's I don't know. I wish the lockout didn't happen. I think, you know, maybe I could have kept playing. And I mean, the NHL obviously for me was a dream. It was something that was never in the cards. Like I went over to Finland my first year of pro. Like I think my best offer was an East Coast league, which is fine. I don't, you know, it wasn't like I was too good for that. I just went over to Finland on a tryout. I had an agent who's the Florida GM, Billy Zito, who was very. You want to talk about the conversations we had at these times? I would be like talking to him, and he'd be like, Brian Rafalski's call. You know, like he was pretty honest. Like he's awesome, and so I would just be like sitting there like, so am I getting this 2-way or what? You know, but you know, I was very lucky to have him. He worked for me, but yeah, no, I went over there just at a time during the lockout, and then I eventually had to stay. Yeah.
That just quickly on Finland, because I mean, you were undrafted through 4 years of college where you had some great numbers at Minnesota Duluth. I mean, it's a very unique path. But you mean tore it up in Finland? I mean, what was that like? And was the NHL? Did you see that as a path to the National Hockey League, or did you go there as, hey, I want to keep playing, and I've got an opportunity in Europe, and that's where I'm going?
Yeah, you're exactly right on the second part there. It was late August too. It was like August, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was sitting up in Duluth with just guys I played with in college, and I ended up playing in the AHL like right when college ended. So I kind of I played 9 games with Portland, and I was like, it was just not what I wanted to do at the time. I wanted to like finish my year out with the guys I played college with. So I was like in Portland, and I didn't play well, and I think that kind of hurt me actually. And then, yeah, my agent at the time just had his whole thing was finding these guys like myself that, he had a guy like Billy Lano and Tim Thomas and Brian Rafalski, and just guys that might be overlooked. And at the time in Finland, he had his connection and his players over there, and he had Finnish representation and partners. And at the time, this is when like Tuukka Rask was in the league, Antti Niemi, I think Pekkarini maybe. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I don't know why I can't remember a 6'6" Finnish goalie. But, I think he was in the league then. I'm not sure. But where I'm going with this is they were getting heavily scouted. And so I played in Helsinki, which is like the main city, and there's always scouts at the games. And for me, I think as I was playing throughout the first year, I signed the second year, and that's when I was like, maybe I can play some years in Europe. And then after my second year, I got an offer from Pittsburgh and Toronto. And I just, Toronto was like a signing bonus thing where they gave me like a bunch, some money on a signing bonus. And I went to Toronto, and Pittsburgh won the cup. Like I always, there's many of these decisions that I look back on and I think, what if? But I don't. I'm just kidding. I actually am very happy with how everything turned out. But yeah, I ended up in Toronto and just kind of went from there.
Outside of the National Hockey League, number of seasons in the KHL with a number of different teams, the Swiss League, Finland, Sweden, Germany. What was the best place you played, and what was the worst place you played?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a great question because there is a difference. Like all the leagues are different. And in the KHL, the reason the KHL is the best league is because it's just like they're depth players. They're born players. The Russians are really good. You get to like Switzerland, like their depth guys are like, they're like doing 3 jobs and like, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just saying like there's just more depth in out of Russia. But the best place I played was in Lugano, Switzerland. And it was a city that's like borders Milan, Italy, and like it's right by like Lake Como. And it was just like this. Every day you woke up and it was just like this postcard type kind of view. And they were nuts. Like Switzerland's fans are nuts. Like they'll like barricade the bus and not let you leave and like threaten like death on you if you don't win. It's like crazy, but and it's fun. But there's a lot of pressure on imports there. That was probably the best place I played. I wouldn't say it was the best like year for hockey, but overall, the best place I played. The worst place had to be this place, either, I don't know, Neftahimik, it's called, Nizhny-Kamsk. And it's just like, our water was like brown the whole year. Like we had to like, I mean, I don't even want to, I'm going to get like, who knows?
You're going to go back into the witness protection?
This will be the last time anyone's ever seen me. So it was just a rough place, but it was also, it was weird because it was like they really supported the team. And, now that I'm done playing, like joking aside, like I actually am really happy that I went to Russia and did all that. I mean, it was kind of quite an experience for sure.
Do you know any dudes that are still playing in the KHL right now? I can imagine like everything. I mean, it sounds like the National Hockey League is having some issues with Russian players. What it must be like for North Americans that have been making their living going back there in the midst of a really crazy time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know when I was there, I know like Nigel Dawes, but he's gone. I think most guys are gone. That's a good question. I'd have to look that up. I haven't followed too much on that. I just know when I was there, like there was a team in Donetsk, I think it's called, in Ukraine. There was a team, and like by the second year, like they had played their playoff games in Moscow because their like arena was like bombed. Like you can read about it. It's pretty crazy. So it's kind of like now that what's happening, even back then there was stuff going on. But as far as when I was there, I was lucky that, none of that was really big news, I guess you want to call it, or a threat. And overall, when I was in Russia, I was pretty safe. I got paid professionally, and I probably had a pretty good experience. My biggest issue in Russia was me, right? Like it was me, just like the way I looked at things and the way things happened and how I reacted in my head. And it was just probably me complaining. But as far as what's going on today, obviously it's really sad. But I don't know anyone personally, or maybe I do. I just have to look. I'm not sure.
Tim Stapleton's with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. You're doing the biltong. You're doing some podcasting. You've still got a lot of connections in hockey. Have you thought about ever getting into hockey more as a profession, whether it be in a front office, in coaching, or you're pretty happy the way the path of life has taken you right now, Tim?
Coaching's tough. I get my kids. I got a 7-year-old who's just starting to play, and I don't know. I don't know, like at that level, like I know you just talked about the NHL, but like that level, I can't. I don't know how to teach someone how to take a slap shot. It's I don't know, just shoot it, So it's kind of it's fun being a fan of my son today. But as far as I would love to probably do something back in the game at a level of a pro level. I think player development would be something I would like to do. I don't know if I could be in the front office, or I don't know. But like I said, probably half the staff in the NHL probably don't even know what, they're looking me up, right? They're like, who's this guy? They think I'm related to Pat Stapleton, who looks nothing like me. But no, as far as, of course, I always have passion for the game. I think I do have to pay attention more to today's game. I don't watch it too much. It is a different game. I mean, you got, you go on, social media is nuts. There'll be a kid shooting a piece of bread in a toaster, and everyone's put him on the power play. It's you know what I mean? It's this crazy skill going on in the world, and it's just crazy how the game is. It's fun to watch for sure, but it's different. But to your original question, this is what happens. I just ramble. Of course I'd like to. If there was an opening, I would be interested.
I'll tell you what, the kid with the piece of bread, even you having not skated for a couple of years, there might be a spot on the Blackhawks right now. Have you been paying attention to the teardown that they have right now? I mean, that to me is one of the most interesting stories in the league. Everyone knows that they'll be near the bottom, but what happens to pillars of the organization like Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane? And then the other guy is Seth Jones, who just signed an extension that kicks in this year. I'm not sure whether this is what any of those guys signed up for.
Yeah, I don't know. That was crazy. I know Kane's rumored to be going maybe to New York or something, but sounds like it's going to be just a whole, new, because I was through the whole time. That was, I was almost jealous when I came back from Winnipeg and all of a sudden Chicago was this hockey city, and which it always has been, but even the youth and everything. It's a hockey state now, Illinois. It used to be just Minnesota, Massachusetts. Now it's Illinois is one of them. It's great. But I was through the 3 cups and watched that whole thing happen. So as a fan, I guess it's going to be weird for sure. I don't know. I know the last time they were awful. You can hear a guy sneeze in Section 300. There was no one going to the games, right? So I don't know. I'm sure they're going to keep fans and all that stuff too. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be new for sure.
No duh. I remember working for the Moose at a time and being out the Wolves were packing more in the giant ashtray known as the Allstate Arena than.
Well, you couldn't even. I played with Ryan Vandenbush, and he said he was doing a promotion thing on Michigan Avenue, which you're probably familiar with. But it's a big shopping street down in. Yeah. And he was wearing his Blackhawks jersey, giving away tickets, and people were just I'm good. Giving them the Heisman, hey man, I got better things to do. And so today it's you can't even get a ticket. So it has the way it's come around. It's been awesome, not only for the sport, but for the city for sure.
Yeah, well, a long ways to get back to where they were. That's for sure. Tim, this has been so much fun. People will kill me if I don't ask you this on the way out. Have you seen or spoken to Buff, the legend of Bigfoot? Dustin Buff?
He's like Bigfoot. You don't know, is he real? Is he exist?
We know he's real.
I actually am, and not, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think he's going to, I was able to kind of get him maybe on my show, the Raw Knuckles podcast. So hopefully that happens. But yeah, I talked to Buff. He's fishing. I don't know. Half the times it's just, Buff. I'm fortunate enough to be able to communicate with him still. And he was a great teammate, great friend. And yeah, he's definitely, he follows hockey. You'd be surprised, he's still is I think he skates once in a while, but yeah, he's out in Minnesota. But he's real, if that's what you're asking. Like,
I don't know. Well, listen, no, we know. I mean, it just you miss him, haven't seen much of him, and let's face it, he is one of the true unicorns of NHL history. And the thing is, that's about watching him on the ice and what he does. But certainly from talking to guys like you and teammates and just the interactions we had from him, he's as much a unicorn off the ice as he was on.
Yeah, he was a freak. And then the thing about him is that he was someone that he just wanted to play hockey, right? Like he just wanted to come to the rink and just skate and play hockey. And he didn't have to do those other things that are required for most, but he was definitely one of a kind. And I always say, like, he's from this small town in Roseau, Minnesota, and, you know, all of a sudden he became big buff, and he came out of there as big buff. And I think, you know, over time he just didn't want to be big buff anymore, right? So he's a very just laid back, awesome guy, human. And it was a privilege, and I'm very lucky to be able to play with him for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, if and when that happens, you let us know. We'll bring you on beforehand to sort of promote it. And I guarantee you, every single Winnipeg Jet fan that has access to the internet will be tuning in to hear that. Because
there's a lot of pressure on me now. So maybe let's, but you know, I'm not saying that's 100%. I'm nervous. I'm going to do my best. He said, we'll see. It's buff. I mean, I could talk to him one day and then not talk to him for like a year, but hopefully it works out.
Tim, this has been so much fun. Thanks for doing this. All the best with the family and the business. And of course, Raw Knuckles, just quickly let people know where they can find it and when you guys will be cranking out shows.
Well, yeah, I think you can find it on everywhere as far as like podcasting, Apple, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. And we're releasing on, you know, there's a producing team that does this. So like, I haven't even listened to a show. I hate hearing my own voice. So it's just, I just show up and just, I don't know, act like I know what I'm talking about. But we have changed. We were like every Wednesday, every Thursday, I think. Like, I don't even know. You're going to get me fired. That's what the question just got me fired. But yeah, it's weekly and it's awesome. It's you know, we're obviously revolved around hockey to start, but we're really trying to just kind of get people's journeys in life and like how they got there. And there's some pretty cool stories. And you know, we're not trying to so much just be hockey, and hopefully that's what eventually happens. And you know, we're not going to be a Spittin' Chicklets. Those guys are Mount Rushmore, and they're obviously paved the way for guys like Nux and I to try this. So we're trying to be a little different, but we're learning, and yeah, definitely take a listen. I think it's pretty good. For folks watching on the YouTube stream, you can see Remis just had it up. It's Raw Knuckles with Chris Nyland and Tim Stapleton. Can they see your penthouse view? Can they see your penthouse view? Yeah, always sunny. It's always sunny.
Well, it hasn't been always sunny in Winnipeg.
Sweatshirt on, it's like snowing for real.
I'll tell you what, dude. If we had had the winter this winter, when in 11-12, the vibes around the team wouldn't have been as good. It was freaking miserable this year. I listen. I've lived here my entire life.
Thing about Winnipeg, that was, you know, you're like running, you're like mad. That's how cold it is. You get in your car and you're just screaming.
Hey, I'm surprised we don't create more sprinters from this city, because the Winnipeg Shuffle, right. That sprint from the car to the door.
I was the worst, man. I was just like it was, yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's I don't know. I think your view is awesome. That's what we're talking about.
Tim, appreciate it, pal. Lots of love from you in the chat here. Winnipeg fans still remember that year and your contributions, and certainly some epic visits with us on our previous home and our new home. Let's do this again soon. Have a great summer.
Anytime, guys, and thanks for having me.
Oh, man, how good was that? All-time beauty lister, Tim Stapleton. Check out Raw Knuckles wherever you get podcast. Tim teaming up with Chris Knuckles Nyland. All right, marbles coming up in just a second, everybody. Of course, tonight at the game, there'll be some CC flowing in the Rum Hut, the Bruegel Rum Hut, of course, maybe at the Jim Beam Stillhouse, and everywhere, because, of course, Canadian Club is the official sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But if you haven't already tried the drink of the summer, the ready-to-drink Canadian Club and ginger ale, also available at the game. You'll see plenty of them around. Make sure you pick one up and try it if you haven't already. And you can get Canadian Club products and the CC and ginger at most beer stores. And, of course, CC, the original at all Manitoba liquor marts. Hey, if you're not going to the game tonight, Boston Pizza might be a great place to take it in. Of course, they'll have the big game on the big screen with sound. And of course, great specials for happy hour between 3 and 6, 9 to 12, and their new summer menu, including carnitas tacos, pizzas, and the pizza flights are back as well. Check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. Assiniboia Downs will be back with live racing on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, and we'll get back to our picks. Thanks again to everyone that came out and joined us on Tuesday night for our first Winnipeg Sports Talk night at the races. We look to do it. We'll hopefully do that again later on this season. We had so much fun. But asdowns.com for all information on the track. You can make reservations for that amazing prime rib buffet that we all enjoyed on Tuesday. And of course, you can also get a account at hpibet.com and bet remotely on Assiniboia Downs and tracks around the world as well. All right, let's get Remis back in here. We'll get to our cool bet picks in a minute. But we have some things to do. I guess first things first, Remis, let's open up the registration for marbles. And I will remind everybody, if you're new here, this is maybe the highlight of all of our week, the annual the weekly, I should say, Friday afternoon marble race. You do have to be subscribed to be a winner. So make sure you hit that red subscribe button and hit that thumbs up while you're at it. Would like to get that number up above 200 for today's episode. We've got a Canadian Club Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie, our version of the Masters green jacket for our winner. I think we pretty much got all sizes, although we're out of double X right now. So I'll let you know on that. We do have a couple other hoodies, some Cool Bet hoodies and a DraftKings one as well for the double X size. But the raffle is open! Exclamation mark marbles. Put it in the chat. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Then we'll grab all the names and get ready to drop the marbles. Let's get Remis back in here. Man, that was fun talking with Stapleton. What a beauty he is.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Tim Stapleton when he was here. You know, he was kind of like the underdog, smallerish guy. He was on the bubble with the Jets, as he said, put on waivers, but they told him to stick around. He played the power play. He was also really good in NHL 11 and 12 on EA Sports. So I was him on Xbox. I know one of those guys who kind of had a low rating, but he was quick, really good. So nice to see. That was a great conversation, a lot of fun.
No doubt. Check out Raw Knuckles wherever you get podcasts as well. Of course, Stapleton with Chris Nyland. So listen, while we get the marbles ready to go, listen, I'll get the cool bet lines in a minute, but we got to give a big shout out to our guy, Rick Delane, because the Winnipeg Sports Talk car, Remis, is it's basically Bomber-esque right now. Back-to-back wins. And we got to give a shout out to Rick for rocking the WST logo and most importantly, getting another checkered flag.
Yeah, Baggy won again last night. This is from last week. And there he's going around. And he's got the WST on the hood of his car. And he's got it on his jacket as well, embroidered. And that car is so awesome. We were in it last year.
It is so neat.
Yeah, so shout out to Rick. And here's the interview. They said, who do you want to give a shout out to, Huss? And he mentioned us.
Well, great
Beautiful.
job. Any sponsors that you like to thank?
Yeah, Westbrook Manufacturing and Winnipeg Sports Talk came on new last year. And you guys should check them out. They're kind of the last sports show in Winnipeg. They talk about the races. It's definitely worth checking out. And
there you go.
Rick, taking care of the fellas. Right on. Oh, man, Rick's such a great dude. And for those of you that are into auto racing and heading out to the Speedway, you're well aware of Rick, but great to partner up with him. Big congratulations from your boys here at WST. All right, while we finish up the marbles, again, exclamation mark marbles in the chat. If you would like to join us and get in, it's completely free. For all you newbies, just trust me, do it. You're going to want to be involved. Let's check out our cool bet lines for today. I'm not sure. Do we have updated open numbers right now? We do. Okay, my guy Cam Smith, who I gave you on the lock shop at 30-1, is the leader right now, and he is plus 185 to win the event after 36 holes. He's got a 2-shot lead. And then there's Rory McIlroy, who's 3 back, plus 425 for Rory. It looks like he's going to be playing I'm not sure if he's going to be with Vic Hovland or if Vic got in or DJ. But anyways, I mean, just a star-studded top of the leaderboard right now. And don't forget about Masters champion Scotty Scheffler as well. DJ and Scheffler 11-1, Vic 9-1, Cam Young 8-1. Rory and Cam Smith at the top of the leaderboard as well. And as far as the Canadian Football League games tonight, what do we got? Bombers, Stamps. This game opened at 4. It went to 4.5. It's now 3.5 for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And the money line is -189. Calgary playing +155 on the road. Tomorrow we got a CFL doubleheader. The game touchdown Atlantic out in the Maritimes is going to go between the Riders and the Argonauts. The Riders 2.5-point favorites. Toronto +2.5. And then the finale, somebody's got to win this game. I guess there could technically be a tie, but either Ottawa or Hamilton will finally get something outside of a loss. And the Ticats are 7-point favorites against the Red Blacks, who, of course, acquired Nick Arbuckle this week. Ottawa +235 on the money line. Hamilton -303. All right, Remo, you want to wrap up the entries?
Sure, I can wrap them up. We do have some NHL signings here. Former Jet Zach Sanford, 1 year, $850,000 contract with Nashville. A bit of a pay cut from
Not a bit of a pay cut, a big pay cut.
The last season. Well, I was trying to be nice, but you don't want to tell him that it's a big.
Well, I mean, that's
cut.
the situation for so many guys. I mean, they're just looking for jobs right now. We've talked, and Brandon mentioned, I mean, like 20 teams in the league have less than $5 million cap space. So, I mean, they're prioritizing the guys that they're really making a run for. And now we'll see all the other dominoes sort of fall with a number of players that are forced into, taking 1-year deals at near league minimum if they want to stay in the National Hockey League. And that was the case with Zach Sanford, who really didn't have too much of an impact during his time with Winnipeg coming over at the trade deadline.
Yeah, he made 1.5 mil. Sorry, 2 million last year. 2 million last year. So he's basically making half as much money, more than half pay cut. That's a pretty big pay cut. So we'll see. There's, as far as free agents, we're still waiting on Kadri, still waiting on John Klingberg, but Paul Stastny is one we're kind of like, where is he going to go? Is he going back to Colorado? PK Subban, Phil Kessel, Patrice Bergeron, what's he up to? And Nino Niederreiter I thought he's a pretty solid player for Carolina, but where's he going to land? So
If I'm the Jets, I'm doubling back to Stastny, and whether it's upping the offer or doing a full court press to get him back for another season. Think about the way the room was last year, and that was with Eric Comrie and Paul Stastny, and Stastny, who really became the conscience of the team. I don't know what this team is like without those two individuals in particular. And then you add in the center ice position with the uncertainty of Pierre-Luc Dubois, even more so than Mark Scheifele right now. And I'll tell you what, if the Jets could get Paul Stastny, that would be a big, big signing. Although I won't hold my breath, because as he has said publicly or through his agents, he is looking to play for a contender. And I'm not sure, based on the offseason, that many people are thinking the Jets are a true Stanley Cup contender, at least at this point.
Okay, how about this? The Jets haven't announced their assistant coach yet. What if you had Stastny as a player/assistant coach? Because at times he kind of seemed like he didn't have a C on his jersey, but he did seem like one of the leaders in the room. And now I'm kind of half
I don't know if he would want to do that,
yeah.
But I'll tell you what, sign me up for that. I mean,
yeah,
that's the sort of guy that I think would be that the Jets need, frankly, right now. They need a lot of things. Couple other signings. Morgan Frost gets a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Flyers for $800K, and just more and more depth signings right now. Brad Hunt in Colorado, 2 years, not hearing what the numbers are. John Hayden in Seattle. Martin Ferk, one of the few NHLers without a vowel in his last name. He's signed with the St. Louis
others?
Blues. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any.
Yeah. He's got a bomb of a slapper, Marty Ferk. Played with Ehlers in junior. I don't know if you knew that one with the Halifax Mooseheads.
A couple defense signings for the Leafs. Victor Mete, I think we might have touched on that one yesterday. League min $750, and same with former Jet Jordy Ben signing as a depth defenseman for the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, let's drop these marbles. Let's add in Tim Stapleton, Remo, to the list.
Yeah.
And let's put in Ed Tait and Rewucki, our guests today. Anybody else that we should get on so far? I guess Big Save Dave. Let's give Big Save Dave a marble.
One thing about Dave, this is coming up in our chat. So you mentioned Bufflin at the end of the Stapleton interview. You know what number Dave Riddick has worn the last couple of years?
33.
33. Do the Jets? No one's worn it since Bufflin. I don't think that was a question that came up yesterday. I wonder when they're going to announce the numbers. Man, if we're going to have to pour one out for 33 if he wears it. Or, if they're struggling to sell tickets, the chat came up with a great idea, and we've kind of talked about this, to have Buff Night, big Buff Night, where you give a big tribute. You could sell that out, show highlights.
That's a great idea. I don't know whether he's ready for that yet or the organization's ready for that yet, but it has to happen at some point.
It has to.
When that happens, it is going to be because let's face it, I mean, it's such unfinished business. I mean, I know we've moved on so far from that whole episode, but I mean, he went out to the Iceplex, skated a little bit with the guys the day before training camp, and then came in and said he was out, and then the entire soap opera that went along that season. And then that was it for Buff. They did the buyout, or they did the termination of the contract, and he never played again in the National Hockey League, and he is probably the greatest enigma in the National Hockey League in a number of decades, but also one of the most popular and memorable players that has ever worn a Winnipeg Jet jersey. So count me in on that. Heck, give Big Buff a marble as well today.
Turd Ferguson says we need Buff closure. And there was also shout out to Rutger McGroarty, who was on earlier this week. It was a great conversation.
Definitely. Let's get. You know what? Rutger and Brad Lambert, the Jets' 2 first-round picks. They're getting marbles today as well. All right, we ready to go?
Yeah. So we got 174 marbles, 167 entries plus our 1, 2, 3 is probably 7. Yeah, I can add. That's
nicely done. Folks, just make sure, if you haven't already, hit the make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the red; it's completely free. And it'll, if you're wondering what that means, it just means when you get onto YouTube, the latest content from Winnipeg Sports Talk will be amongst your top choices. Makes it a heck of a lot easier to join us and to find us. And of course, the other thing is, if you do want to turn your notifications on, it'll give you a notification every day when we go live. Usually at 1 o'clock, but notifications are handy for days like Wednesday, where we sometimes do go on either earlier or at special times if there is big news relating to Winnipeg sports, and in particular, the Winnipeg Jets. All right, the green jacket of WST is ready. The WST hoodie, as I mentioned, I think we still have all sizes with the exception of XX. Remo, where are we going today?
Let me pull it up. Sorry, I had to top rope someone. Someone was abusing the command. They had to get booted.
Buff is in chat. Buff has entered the chat.
Buff's
and
in
says,
here? Nice.
If that goalie wears 33, there will be a problem.
Yeah. Buff in all capitals.
Yeah.
In chat.
Welcome, Buff. We miss you.
That's pretty good. Okay.
Stuff.
I got to make sure I put the actual, this day's name list in, because last week I did not update the name list.
We just kept on doing marble races over and over until we finally got it right.
Okay.
It's a game. I got to get tailgating. We got to pull this off in a timely fashion and correct.
Let's go to the theme music, then we
Exactly. Tristan Rivers' music is queued up, ready to go. It's Friday afternoon on WST, and we're just about ready to drop the marbles. All right. we've got the entries. Thanks to everyone for coming out and jumping in on our weekly marble race. Again, we've got this hoodie for first place. We'll get the winner to email us at the winnipegsporttalk@gmail.com afterwards. And Donnie, I know Donnie had sent me a message. I'm going to be out of the town on the weekend, but Donnie will hook up early next week and get you set up after your big win last week. A lot of talk. Has there ever been a back-to-back winner? No, there hasn't. And we'll see. Maybe that could possibly happen this week. I kind of doubt it, though. It would be a 1 in 174 chance. Remo, where are we going today?
We just hit the dojo. Cosmic Chaos.
Oh, how about Cosmic Chaos?
Sure, Cosmic.
We just did the dojo last week.
Did we do? I think last week, I picked a bad one and we had to redo it. Last week was a bit of a cluster, so.
Yeah, we ended up in the dojo after a couple near misses.
I think it was, Kevin Kowalik says it was an all-timer. We're not going to talk about what happened last week.
No doubt. We're moving on.
Yeah.
We're focused in on the next marble race, which is right now. Everyone in the chat, good luck. Thanks for being with us. Been another amazing week. Appreciate everyone joining us on YouTube as well as on the podcast. And if you are talking on the weekend about what's going on in Winnipeg sports, tell a friend about WST and where they can find us. All right, Remo, let's drop the marbles and get ready for Bomber Stamps tonight. All right. Cosmic Chaos. Everyone looking to be the first marble down the tube. Where and who will be first?
Whoa. Sorry.
Ernie Thieston. Let's see who's going on here. We've got quite the view here of the marbles right now, Reem.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, here we're out. Dino's in first.
Dino, nicely done. Cosmic Chaos right now.
Oh, this is insane.
Yeah, this is wow. It's like a roller coaster. Multiple tubes coming back as well. We see Art Cooper in the mix there. Oh, relaxing. Dino Apostolopoulos in the mix. Who's first out? It looks like, Art Cooper. Art Cooper getting shot in with a little bit of a lead right now. Although this is anybody's race. I see Sean, Mitch, the Godfather. Mitch, WHT looking pretty good. But who's coming out first? We have
Obayo
in first place right now. David Asplund in second. Is that David Riddick? Is Big Save Dave right there in the mix?
I'm not sure.
Pretty and Pionk, a former winner. I see pretty. Oh, now Bravo Bry, longtime WST supporter. Yet to win the marbles. Oh, top roped. It's been eliminated. Who gets through? Barry. That was an absolute heartbreaker for Bravo Bry. Theo Seegers now in first place, and we are getting very, very close. This looks like it's Theo Seegers to lose. Will he get it done? Theo Seegers at the wire. Theo Seegers with the W. David Asplund in second. D-Train. Pretty and Pionk. Derek Schmidt. Infinity Comet. Your top 10 are as follows. Brad Lambert. Jets first round pick with a great performance in his first marble race, finishing top 10. Miller Time's in there. And the Godfather Mitch with the top 10 performance as well. And Jet Oil Tom's been hot. He won the Bomber tickets yesterday. And in second place. All right, well, we're finishing it up. And again, of course, we will do the rundown of the full list because I know many of you D-Gens like to bet each other on who did better in the race. So we will make sure that that's there, and you can go back and check it on YouTube. And there's Shane Mason filling it up. Theo Seegers, congratulations. You just beat 173 other marbles to win the marble race on WST. Theo, send us an email at winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. Let me know what size you are, and we'll try and get you hooked up at some point next week. You can pop by and pick it up. There you are. We're kind of looking. Issue boy Bruce. What up, Bruce? He got 20. Rucker McGroarty at 21st. That's quite a good performance. Interim coach at 32. Slee Mitchnuck. We keep that going down there, Reem. Let's just see what else we've got. Gitch Lishka, 46. Not bad. Eric in the 50.
Oh,
Doug Phil.
Oh, David Riddick finished 69th. Nice.
Big save. Yeah, big save Dave. Was in there at the start, but obviously got caught up a little bit later on. Just keep on going down. I see Phyllis there. Mark A. Big Buff. Big Buff came in at 87th. Tim Stapleton at, 96th?
Yeah.
My boy Todd Fertani. What up, Todd? 101. And then again, it all goes down to the final marble. How many people got DQ'd?
Oh,
So
there's
only
100.
So 50 people got thrown over the top rope.
Yeah, something like that.
Excellent. All right. Well, anyways, thanks again to everyone for participating in today's marble race. And Theo, congratulations. Send us that email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up next week. Gang, what a week it's been. Again, a sincere thank you from Michael and myself for the incredible support. These shows, we're in the middle of summer right now, and we continue to grow day after day. Certainly our subscribers continue to grow up, and we really do appreciate that. But yeah, tell a friend about WST, and we're both at the Bomber game tonight. If you see us, say hi. And most importantly, drink a little water beforehand, get a couple cold ones in there, and get ready to get loud when the Stampeders are on offense, and we'll see if the Bombers can continue their incredible run on a home field, as well as to begin this season and get to 6-0. Big thank you to Tim Stapleton for joining us. Man, that was a lot of fun to get him on the program this week. Of course, Brandon Rewucki and the incomparable Ed Tait. Make sure to check out bluebombers.com for post-game reaction and all of Ed's takes on the big game tonight. That's going to be it for a couple days for us, though, folks, but we'll be back on Monday afternoon, 1:00 p.m., We'll see whether there's any more PLD drama, maybe a move by the Winnipeg Jets, maybe some more depth signings. Who knows? Whatever happens, you'll hear it here, and we'll talk about it for you on Winnipeg Sports Talk, YouTube podcasts, wherever you get your feeds. Have a great weekend. Hopefully we'll see you at the Bomber game. Go Blue. We'll see you Monday.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.